"You kidnapped my children!" My daughter screamed at me across the courtroom, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at my face like a weapon. The judge's gavel hadn't even fallen yet, but Sarah's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd like a knife. I stood there, my worn hands clutching my purse, staring at the stranger wearing my daughter's face. 13 years. 13 years I'd raised Emma Lucas and little Sophie after Sarah dropped them on my doorstep with nothing but a note saying she needed to find herself. 13 years of scraped knees, homework tears, and goodnight kisses, and now she wanted them back. Not because she loved them, not because she'd finally grown up, but because I just inherited my late sister's estate and suddenly being a mother seemed profitable again. What Sarah didn't know was that I'd been recording everything, every missed birthday, every unanswered call, every moment she chose her new life over her children, and I was about to make my move. I still remember the day it all started back when Sarah was 23, and I still believed my daughter could do no wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in March, one of those deceptively beautiful spring days where the sun makes promises the world can't keep. I was in my garden tending to the roses I'd planted when Sarah was born when I heard the car pull up. Not Sarah's beat-up Honda that I'd helped her buy when she got her first job, but a newer model, something sleek and expensive that didn't belong in our modest neighborhood. I wiped the soil from my hands and walked around to the front of my small house, the one I'd lived in for 35 years. The one where I'd raised Sarah alone after her father died when she was just 6 years old. What I saw made my heart stop. Sarah was pulling suitcases from the trunk, and 3 small children sat in the back seat, their faces pressed against the windows, looking confused and frightened. "Sarah!" I called out, walking faster now, my gardening gloves still on. "Sweetheart, what's going on?" She didn't look at me. Not really. Her eyes slid past mine the way they had been doing for the past year, ever since she'd met Derek at that marketing conference in Chicago. Derek with his smooth talk and expensive suits. Derek who thought my house was quaint in a way that made the word sound like an insult. Derek who had convinced my daughter that her roots were chains holding her back from her true potential. "I need you to watch the kids for a while, Mom," Sarah said, her voice flat, emotionless, as if she were asking me to water her plants while she went on vacation. "Watch them." "Sarah, what are you talking about? Where's Derek? Where are you going?" Emma, who was 7 at the time, climbed out of the car first. She was clutching a stuffed rabbit that I'd given her for her 4th birthday, its fur matted and one ear hanging by a thread. Lucas followed, only 5 years old, carrying his baby sister Sophie, who was barely 3. Sophie's face was streaked with dried tears, and she was sucking her thumb, something I'd seen her do only when she was scared. "Mommy said we're having a sleepover with Grandma," Emma said, but her voice trembled with uncertainty. She knew something was wrong. Kids always know. "Sarah, talk to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to frighten the children more than they already were. "What's happening?" My daughter finally looked at me then, and what I saw in her eyes chilled me to the bone. There was nothing there. No warmth, no guilt, not even anger. Just a cold emptiness that I didn't recognize. This wasn't the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. This wasn't the teenager who cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. This was a stranger. "Derek and I are moving to California," she said. "He got a position at a startup in San Francisco. It's an incredible opportunity, Mom, life-changing, but the kids would just complicate things right now. We need time to get settled, figure out our new life. You understand?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement, an assumption that of course I would sacrifice everything, drop my life, my part-time job at the library, my few remaining friends to clean up her mess. "Sarah, you can't just leave your children. They need their mother." "They have you," she said, pulling out one more bag from the trunk. "Look, I'll send money when I can. I have to go. Derek's waiting at the airport." "How long?" I managed to ask. My throat tight with tears I refused to shed in front of the children. "I don't know. A few months maybe? A year at most. Just until we're established." She didn't even hug them goodbye. She touched Emma's head briefly, a gesture so impersonal it might have been a pat for a dog, then got back in the car. Emma ran after her, the stuffed rabbit falling to the ground. Mommy? Mommy, when are you coming back? You promised we'd go to the zoo next week, Mommy, please. Sarah's car was already backing out of the driveway. Through the tinted windows, I couldn't see her face. I couldn't see if she was crying, if she felt anything at all. The car turned the corner, and she was gone. Lucas started crying, then loud, wailing sobs that shook his little body. Sophie, sensing her brother's distress, joined in. Emma just stood there in the middle of the driveway, staring at the empty street where her mother's car had been, her small fists clenched at her sides. I gathered them all in my arms, these 3 broken little souls my daughter had discarded like unwanted furniture. "It's okay," I whispered, lying to them, lying to myself. "It's going to be okay. Grandma's here. I've got you." That night, after I had fed them dinner, helped them brush their teeth with the emergency toothbrushes I kept for their occasional visits, and tucked them into the guest bedroom that I frantically converted into a makeshift kids' room, I found the note. It was stuck between the clothes in one of the suitcases, written on hotel stationery from some place called the Maritime Grand. "Mom," it read, "I know you probably think I'm a terrible person right now, but you don't understand what it's like to feel trapped. Derek says I have so much potential that I could be someone important, someone who matters. But not if I'm tied down to the same old life. The kids will be fine with you. You always wanted more time with them anyway. I'll call when I'm settled. Don't try to find me. I need this. I need to find out who I really am. Sarah." I read that note 20 times that first night, looking for something. Anything that showed the daughter I'd raised was still in there somewhere. But all I found was selfishness dressed up as self-discovery. All I found was a woman who valued her own desires over the 3 innocent children sleeping in the next room. Children who would wake up tomorrow and ask for their mommy, children who didn't understand why they'd been left behind. The first few weeks were chaos. Emma cried herself to sleep every night. Lucas started having accidents again, something he hadn't done since he was 3. Sophie refused to eat unless I literally fed her like a baby, and she screamed if I left her sight for even a moment. I had to quit my job at the library. There was no way I could work even part-time while caring for 3 traumatized children who needed constant supervision and comfort. My savings, modest as they were, started to dwindle. The money Sarah had promised never came. I called her cell phone dozens of times in those first months, but it went straight to voicemail. I left messages that ranged from pleading to angry to desperate. "Sarah, please call me. The kids need to hear your voice. Emma made you a drawing. Lucas learned to ride his bike. Sophie said Grandma today for the first time. Please, sweetheart, just call." Nothing. Silence. It was as if my daughter had evaporated into thin air. I reached out to Derek's family thinking maybe they would have a way to contact them. His mother, Patricia, met me for coffee at a diner downtown. She wore designer sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget and looked uncomfortable sitting on the cracked vinyl seat. "Mrs. Chen," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of fake sympathy that made my teeth ache. "I'm sure Sarah and Derek are just very busy right now. Building a new life takes time and focus. Perhaps it's best if you just give them some space." "Space," I repeated, feeling my face flush with anger. Mrs. Patterson's Sarah left her 3 children on my doorstep without warning. I'm 72 years old. I'm raising 3 young children on a fixed income. I don't want to cause problems, but I need help. I need to know what's going on. She reached across the table and patted my hand, the gesture condescending in a way that made me want to scream. I'm sure Sarah knows what she's doing. She always was a smart girl. And honestly, Mrs. Chen, from what Derek tells me, you've always been a bit overbearing. Maybe this is good for everyone. The children get to spend quality time with their grandmother, and Sarah gets to become the woman she was meant to be. I pulled my hand back. The woman she was meant to be abandoned her children. Patricia's smile never wavered. We all make choices, Mrs. Chen. Some of us choose family, some of us choose ourselves. Who's to say which is right? I left that diner knowing I would get no help from the Patterson family. They saw Sarah's abandonment as some kind of feminist awakening, a brave woman choosing her career over the traditional path. They didn't see 3 scared kids who jumped every time a car drove past, hoping it was their mother coming back. Months turned into a year. I sold my car to buy bunk beds for Emma and Sophie. I started shopping at discount stores, buying generic brands, clipping coupons like my life depended on it because in many ways it did. My friends from the library stopped calling eventually. I had no time for lunch dates or book clubs. My entire world narrowed to school drop-offs, parent-teacher conferences, scraped knees, and bedtime stories. Emma started calling me Mommy, sometimes, then catching herself and going quiet as if she'd betrayed Sarah by forgetting her. Lucas stopped asking when his mother was coming home. Sophie didn't remember Sarah at all anymore. When I showed her pictures, she'd point and say "pretty lady," as if Sarah were a stranger. I joined a support group for grandparents raising grandchildren. There were 12 of us meeting in the basement of St. Mary's Church every Tuesday night. Some of them had lost their children to drugs or prison. Some had children who were simply too mentally ill to parent. And then there was me, whose daughter had just chosen not to be a mother anymore, as casually as someone might choose not to keep a gym membership. The hardest part, a woman named Gloria told me one night, is not the money or the exhaustion. It's the anger. You have to let it go, Janet, for the kids. They need you whole, not bitter. But how could I not be angry? How could I watch Emma, now 8 years old, put on a brave face at the mother-daughter school breakfast, telling everyone her mom was traveling for work, while I sat there, my heart breaking, pretending everything was fine? How could I not feel rage when Lucas, now 6, drew a picture of his family in art class and didn't include Sarah at all, and his teacher called me in concerned about what trauma might cause a child to erase his mother from his memory? On Sophie's 4th birthday, 2 years after Sarah left, I made her a cake shaped like a princess castle. She'd been obsessed with princesses since Emma started reading her fairy tales. We had a small party, just some neighborhood kids and a few of the other grandparents from my support group who'd become my makeshift community. Sophie was blowing out her candles, her face flushed with joy when Emma pulled me aside. She was 9 now, starting to understand more than I wished she did. "Grandma," she said quietly, "do you think Mom forgot about us?" I knelt down so we were eye level. "Oh, sweetheart, no. Your mom could never forget you. She loves you very much." "Then why doesn't she call? Why doesn't she come visit? Even a card would be nice." Her voice cracked, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "Did we do something wrong? Is that why she left?" This was the question I'd been dreading, the one I knew was coming, but had no good answer for. How do you tell a child that her mother's absence had nothing to do with her worth? How do you explain that some people are simply too selfish to see the treasures right in front of them? Emma listened to me very carefully. I said, taking her small hands in mine, "You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Your mom is dealing with her own issues, adult things that have nothing to do with how wonderful you are. And I want you to know something else. I am so grateful, so incredibly blessed that I get to be here with you and Lucas and Sophie. You 3 are the best thing in my life." "But you didn't choose this," Emma said, her wisdom beyond her years, cutting straight to the heart of it. "Mom made you do this." "Maybe I didn't choose it," I admitted, "but I choose to stay. Every single day I choose you, and that's what matters." She hugged me, then her thin arms wrapping around my neck, and I felt her tears on my shoulder. "I love you, Grandma. I love you too, baby, more than you'll ever know." That night, after the kids were asleep, I did something I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Webb, a retired police officer who now ran a small firm that specialized in finding people who didn't want to be found. I met him in his cluttered office above a dry cleaner's shop, and I paid him $500 from my emergency fund money I'd been saving in case one of the kids got sick. "I need you to find my daughter," I told him, sliding a photo across his desk. It was from Emma's 5th birthday 3 years ago now. Sarah was smiling, holding Emma on her lap, looking like Mother of the Year. You couldn't see the person she would become from that photo. You couldn't see the abandonment coming. Marcus studied the picture, then looked at me. "Mrs. Chen, I have to ask, what do you want to happen when I find her?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe I just need to know she's okay. Maybe I need to know this was all worth it. And if she doesn't want to be found, then at least I'll know I tried." It took Marcus 3 weeks. He called me on a Wednesday afternoon while I was helping Lucas with his math homework. "I found her," he said. "You might want to sit down for this." I sent Lucas to play with his sisters and took the phone into my bedroom, closing the door. "Tell me." Sarah Chen is now Sarah Patterson. She married Derek 6 months after they moved to California. They're living in a condo in San Francisco, pretty upscale neighborhood. Derek's doing well at his startup, and Sarah's working as a marketing consultant. They travel a lot. Paris, Tokyo, Costa Rica in the last year alone. They seem very happy. Every word was a knife. And the kids? Does she ever mention the kids? There was a pause. Mrs. Chen, I checked her social media. There's no mention of children. Not in her bio, not in her posts. It's like they don't exist. I felt something inside me break some last shred of hope I'd been clinging to. "Thank you, Marcus." "There's more," he said quietly. "I found an interview she did with a local business magazine about 6 months ago. They asked her about work-life balance. She said, and I quote, "I've always believed in living authentically. Some women find fulfillment in traditional roles, but I've chosen to focus on building my career and enjoying my marriage. Derek and I love our freedom to travel and take risks. We're not tied down by conventional expectations." Not tied down. That's what her children were to her. Ties, anchors, obstacles to her authentic life. "I see," I managed to say. "Send me your final bill." "Mrs. Chen," Marcus said, and his voice was gentle now. "I have 3 kids of my own. What your daughter did, that's not normal. That's not okay. Those kids are lucky to have you." After I hung up, I sat on my bed for a long time staring at the wall. I could hear the kids playing in the living room, their laughter drifting down the hallway. Sophie was singing a song from her favorite cartoon. Lucas was doing his dinosaur impression, the one that always made his sisters giggle. Emma was reading to them, her voice patient and kind, already taking on a maternal role at just 9 years old. I thought about that note Sarah had left. I need to find out who I really am. Well, she'd found out. She was a woman who could erase her children from her life story as easily as deleting a file from a computer. She was a woman who could smile for magazine interviews about authentic living while 3 kids she'd abandoned were learning to live without her. I made a decision that night. I would stop waiting for Sarah to come back. I would stop making excuses for her to the kids. I would stop pretending that this was temporary. Emma, Lucas, and Sophie were mine now in every way that mattered, and I would give them the stability and love they deserved, even if it meant I had to work twice as hard, sacrifice everything, and spend my retirement years raising a second family. I went to a lawyer the next week, a kind woman named Rebecca Ortiz, who specialized in family law. Her office was small but tidy, with children's drawings pinned to a bulletin board behind her desk. "I want to get legal custody of my grandchildren," I told her. "Their mother abandoned them 2 years ago. I don't even know if she's planning to come back." Rebecca listened to my story, taking notes, her expression growing more serious with each detail. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and sighed. "Mrs. Chen, what Sarah did is called parental abandonment. It's grounds for terminating parental rights. But I have to warn you, it's not an easy process. We'd need to prove she's been gone, that she hasn't provided support, that she's had no contact." "I have everything documented," I said. "Phone records showing my attempts to contact her, emails, the note she left. I even know where she is now." "Have you tried to establish formal child support?" "No. I was afraid if I pushed too hard, she'd come back and take them just out of spite. These kids have been through enough." Rebecca nodded. "I understand. Here's what I recommend. Let me draft a petition for legal guardianship. It's less permanent than adoption, but it will give you the legal authority to make medical and educational decisions. If Sarah doesn't contest it, which honestly she probably won't, if she hasn't been in contact, we can get it done fairly quickly. And if she does contest it, then we fight. And Mrs. Chen, from what you've told me, we'd win." The guardianship papers were served to Sarah at her San Francisco address 6 weeks later. I waited for a response for an angry phone call for something. Nothing came. Sarah signed the papers without contest, allowing me to become Emma Lucas and Sophie's legal guardian as easily as she might sign for a package delivery. Part of me had hoped she'd fight, that she'd show some spark of maternal instinct, some indication that she cared. But the easy way she gave up her rights told me everything I needed to know. Her children were an inconvenience she was relieved to be rid of officially. Life settled into a new rhythm. Emma was thriving in school now, joining the soccer team and making friends. Lucas's anxiety lessened as the months passed, and he began to trust that I wasn't going anywhere. Sophie started kindergarten, a bright, chatty little girl who told everyone her grandma was the best cook in the whole world. I learned to live on less. I became an expert at thrift store shopping, turned our backyard into a vegetable garden, and taught the kids that adventures didn't require money. We had picnics in the park, went to free museum days, and made holidays special with handmade decorations and love instead of expensive gifts. The kids stopped asking about Sarah. Her birthday came and went and nobody mentioned it. Mother's Day rolled around, and Emma made me a card that said, "To the best mom ever," and I cried in the bathroom so she wouldn't see. Years passed. Emma started middle school. Lucas discovered he had a talent for art. Sophie learned to read and devoured every book she could get her hands on. I was there for every milestone, every tear, every triumph. I was the one who stayed up all night when Emma had the flu. I was the one who helped Lucas overcome his fear of the dark. I was the one who held Sophie when she had nightmares. My sister Margaret, who lived in Boston, and who I hadn't seen in years because I couldn't afford to travel, started calling more frequently. She'd never married, never had kids, had spent her life building a successful real estate business. We'd grown apart when she'd moved east 30 years ago, our lives taking such different paths. "Janet," she said during one of our calls when the kids had been with me for about 8 years, "I've been thinking about my will. I don't have anyone to leave my assets to, and you're my only family. I want you to inherit everything when I'm gone. The business, the properties, the investments, all of it." "Margaret, that's very generous, but I'm fine," I lied. I wasn't fine. I was barely scraping by, but I was too proud to admit it. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "You're raising 3 kids on your own. Let me help now. I'm putting you on my accounts. If anything happens to me, everything goes to you. Use it for those grandkids. Give them the life they deserve." I thanked her, not really thinking much of it. Margaret was only 68, healthy and active. Estate planning seemed like something distant and abstract. But life has a way of surprising you. Margaret died suddenly of a heart attack just after the kids' 10th, 8th, and 6th years with me. I flew to Boston for the funeral, leaving the kids with Gloria from my support group, and discovered that my sister had been much wealthier than I'd ever imagined. Her real estate portfolio was worth millions. She'd made shrewd investments, owned properties across New England, had a business that practically ran itself. And she'd left it all to me. I sat in the lawyer's office in Boston, staring at documents with numbers that didn't seem real, and thought about how life could change in an instant. For 10 years I'd struggled. For 10 years I'd counted every penny made, every sacrifice. And now suddenly I had the means to give those kids everything I'd ever wanted to give them. But I was careful. I didn't tell anyone about the inheritance except Rebecca, my lawyer. She helped me set up trusts for the kids, invest wisely, and manage the properties. I paid off my house. I bought a reliable car. I put money aside for college funds. But I kept living modestly, kept our lives simple. The kids didn't need to know about the money. They just needed to know they were loved and secure. Emma was 15 now, Lucas 13, and Sophie 11. They were amazing kids despite everything they'd been through. Emma wanted to be a doctor. Lucas was applying to art schools for high school. Sophie was already reading at a 10th grade level and wanted to be a writer. We were happy. We were a family. And I thought we were finally safe from the past. I should have known better. The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in May, 13 years after Sarah had driven away from my house. Emma got the mail like she always did after school and brought me a thick envelope with a lawyer's return address. Inside was a petition. Sarah Patterson, formerly Sarah Chen, was suing for full custody of Emma, Lucas, and Sophie. She claimed that I had kidnapped her children, that she'd only intended to leave them with me temporarily, that she'd been suffering from postpartum depression and needed time to recover. The petition stated that she was now in a position to properly care for her children and wanted them returned to her immediately. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking before the words truly sank in. After 13 years of silence, after signing away her rights, after building a life that had no room for the children she'd created, Sarah wanted them back. But why now? Why after all this time? The answer came when I Googled Sarah's name and found recent articles about Derek's startup going public. They were worth tens of millions now. They'd just bought a mansion in Pacific Heights. Sarah was being featured in magazines as a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist. And then I found another article, this one from a society page, about a charity gala. Sarah was quoted talking about her difficult journey as a mother and how she'd overcome so much to be reunited with her children. Reunited, as if she'd been trying to find them, as if they'd been lost, not abandoned. She'd been telling people she was a mother, using the kids as props in her new successful life story. And now, with her money and lawyers and carefully crafted narrative of a mother who'd struggled with mental health issues but had recovered and wanted her babies back, she thought she could just take them. Emma came into the room and saw my face. "Grandma, what's wrong?" I looked at this beautiful young woman who'd grown from a traumatized 7-year-old into someone strong and kind and remarkable, who'd had to grow up too fast because her mother had left her behind, and I knew I would fight with everything I had. "Nothing, sweetheart," I lied. "Everything's going to be fine." But I knew it wouldn't be. Not yet, because Sarah was coming, and this time I wouldn't let her win without a fight. I called Rebecca that night after the kids were asleep, pacing my kitchen while I explained what was happening. "She can't do this, can she?" I asked. "She signed the guardianship papers. She hasn't seen them in 13 years. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "Janet, I need to be honest with you. This is going to be complicated. Sarah has money now, which means she can afford good lawyers. She's going to argue that she was suffering from mental illness, when she left that she's recovered, that she's now stable, and wants to reunite with her children. Family courts tend to favor reunification with biological parents when possible. But what about what the kids want? Emma is 15. Surely she gets a say." "She does, and so does Lucas at 13. Sophie is still young enough that the court will make the decision for her. But Janet, you need to prepare yourself. Sarah is going to paint herself as a victim. She's going to say you turned the kids against her, that you've kept them from her." "That's insane. I have records of every attempt I made to contact her." "I know, and we'll use those. But Sarah's going to have experts testify about postpartum depression, about how trauma can cause parents to make irrational decisions, about how she's worked hard to recover. It's going to be ugly." I sank into a kitchen chair, feeling the weight of it all. What do I do? First, don't tell the kids yet. Not until we have to. Let me file a response to her petition. We'll argue that she voluntarily abandoned them, that they've formed primary attachments to you, that moving them now would be harmful. But Janet, I need you to document everything. Every therapy session, every school event, every moment that shows you've been their primary caregiver. And prepare yourself for the possibility that we might not win. "I can't lose them, Rebecca. They're my whole life." "I know. We'll fight with everything we have. But Sarah has one advantage we can't ignore. She's their biological mother, and the law gives parents a lot of leeway to come back even after abandonment." After I hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen thinking about the past 13 years. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of joy and struggle. And I thought about what Sarah wanted to take from these kids. Not just their home, but their sense of safety, their trust that the people who loved them would stay. I opened my laptop and started writing. Every memory, every detail, everything that had happened since that Tuesday in March 13 years ago. If Sarah wanted a fight, she'd get one. But this time, I had something I didn't have before. I had resources. I had documentation. And most importantly, I had 3 kids who would tell their own truth whether Sarah liked it or not. The court date was set for 3 months away. 3 months to prepare to gather evidence to make my case. 3 months of pretending everything was normal while my world cracked apart. But I'd learned something in 13 years of raising these kids. I was stronger than I thought. And I wasn't going to let Sarah destroy what we'd built without showing her exactly what she'd thrown away. I kept the lawsuit quiet for 2 weeks, carrying that secret like a stone in my chest, while I made breakfast, helped with homework, drove carpool. Every time Emma laughed at dinner, or Lucas showed me a new drawing, or Sophie asked me to braid her hair, I felt that stone grow heavier. They deserve to know. But how do you tell children that the mother who abandoned them now wants them back? How do you explain that love can be conditional, that people can throw you away and then demand you return when it's convenient? Rebecca called on a Thursday evening while I was folding laundry. The kids were upstairs arguing about what movie to watch. Normal sounds, safe sounds, sounds that were about to be shattered. "Janet, we need to tell them," Rebecca said without preamble. Sarah's lawyers filed a motion for temporary custody pending the hearing. They're arguing that every day the children spend with you instead of their mother is harmful. The judge denied it, but the kids need to be prepared. Sarah's team is going to request interviews with them. There's no way to keep this from them now. I sat down on the couch, a half-folded towel in my lap. This weekend, sit them all down together, be honest but gentle, and Janet, be prepared for their reactions. This is going to hit them hard. After we hung up, I walked upstairs and stood outside the TV room, listening to them bicker over whether to watch a comedy or an action movie. Emma was arguing for the comedy. Lucas wanted action. Sophie, as usual, was trying to negotiate a compromise. They sounded so young, so innocent. In a few days, I was going to destroy that innocence. Saturday morning, I made their favorite breakfast: chocolate chip pancakes, crispy bacon, fresh orange juice. Sophie noticed first. "It's not anyone's birthday," she said, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. At 11, she was already too perceptive for her own good. "Why are you making celebration breakfast? Can't I just do something nice?" I asked, but my voice cracked slightly. Emma looked up from her phone, her expression shifting immediately. She'd always been the one who could read me best. "Grandma, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Let's eat first, and then we'll talk." Lucas pushed his pancakes around his plate. "You're scaring me." "I'm sorry, baby. I don't mean to. Come on, eat up." But none of them ate much. They sat there, 3 pairs of eyes, watching me, waiting for the bomb to drop. Finally, I couldn't put it off anymore. "Kids, I need to talk to you about something important. Something about your mom." Sophie's fork clattered onto her plate. Lucas went very still. Emma's jaw tightened. "Is she dead?" Sophie asked, her voice small. "No, honey. She's alive. She's actually doing very well. Too well, maybe." I took a deep breath. "Your mom has filed a lawsuit. She wants you to come live with her in California." The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Then Emma spoke, her voice cold and flat in a way I'd never heard before. "No. Emma, I know this is shocking, but we need to talk about it." "There's nothing to talk about." Emma stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "She left us. She's been gone for 13 years. 13 years, Grandma. I was 7 years old. Lucas was 5. Sophie was a baby. And now she wants us back. No, absolutely not." "Em, I understand you're angry, but legally this is complicated. She's your biological mother, and the court has to consider her petition. She gave you guardianship." Emma's voice was rising now, color flooding her cheeks. "She signed papers saying you could have us." "I know, sweetie, but her lawyers are arguing that she was suffering from postpartum depression, that she wasn't in her right mind when she left. They're saying she's recovered now and wants to be part of your lives again." Lucas finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't remember her." My heart broke a little more. "I know, baby. I don't want to remember her," he continued, looking up at me with tears in his eyes. "You're my mom. You've always been my mom. Why does she get to just come back?" Sophie started crying. Not the loud wails of a child, but the quiet, devastating tears of someone trying to be brave. "Do we have to go? I'm going to do everything I can to keep you here," I said, moving around the table to gather her into my arms. "Everything. But the court is going to want to talk to you kids, especially you and Emma and Lucas. They're going to ask you questions about where you want to live." "I want to live here," Sophie sobbed into my shoulder. With you, this is my home. Emma was pacing now, her hands clenched into fists. This is about money, isn't it? I looked her up last year. I found her Instagram. She's rich now. She married that guy Derek, and they have this perfect life in San Francisco. She posts about charity events and business success and her amazing marriage. But she never not once posted about us. Not one picture, not one mention. We don't exist in her world. So why does she want us now? I'd been dreading this question because I didn't want to tell them what I suspected, but Emma deserved the truth. Your Aunt Margaret died last year and left me some money, quite a bit of money actually. Your mom might have found out about it. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course that's what this is about. She doesn't want us. She wants your money. We don't know that for certain, I said, though I believed it with every fiber of my being. Don't we? Emma grabbed her phone and started scrolling. Look, this is from 3 weeks ago. She posted about her new house. 6 bedrooms, ocean view, infinity pool. And look at the caption. Finally building the life of our dreams. Not excited to reunite with my children. Not can't wait to bring my kids home. Building her dream life. We're not her dream. We never were. Lucas got up and left the room without a word. I heard his bedroom door close quietly, which somehow felt worse than if he'd slammed it. Sophie was still crying against my shoulder. Emma stood there, her phone in her hand, her whole body vibrating with rage. I'm 15 years old, Emma said. I get a say in this, right? The judge will listen to me. Yes, honey, you and Lucas both. You're old enough that your preferences will carry significant weight. Then I'll tell them. I'll tell them exactly what kind of mother Sarah Patterson is. I'll tell them about all the times I cried myself to sleep waiting for her to call. I'll tell them about Lucas's nightmares and Sophie forgetting her face. I'll tell them about you, Grandma, about how you gave up everything for us, about how you're the only mother we've ever really had. Emma, you don't have to fight my battle. She looked at me, and I saw my daughter's eyes in her face, but also something Sarah had never possessed. Loyalty. Yes, I do, because it's not just your battle. It's ours too. She left us, Grandma. She doesn't get to come back and pretend she's Mother of the Year just because it's convenient now. I pulled Emma into a hug, with Sophie still clinging to me, the 3 of us holding on to each other like we could keep the world at bay through sheer force of will. Upstairs, I could hear music coming from Lucas's room turned up loud, his way of drowning out the noise in his head. That night, after I'd tucked Sophie in and checked on Lucas, who pretended to be asleep, but I knew wasn't, I found Emma sitting in the dark living room, her laptop open. What you doing, sweetheart? Research. I want to know everything about her, about what she's been doing all these years. If we're going to court, we need ammunition. Em, you should let the lawyers handle that. The lawyers don't care about us the way we do. She turned the laptop toward me. Look at this. This is an interview she did 2 years ago with some business magazine. They asked her about work-life balance. She said she and Derek chose not to have children because they valued their freedom. Not to have children. Like we don't exist. Like she didn't give birth to 3 kids and then abandon them. I sat down next to her, looking at Sarah's face on the screen. She was smiling, confident, successful. A completely different person from the hollow-eyed girl who dropped those suitcases on my driveway. Can we use this in court? Emma asked. Can we show that she's been lying about us, that she's been telling people she doesn't have kids? Rebecca will know how to handle it. I hate her, Emma said quietly. I've tried not to. I've tried to understand, to think maybe she had her reasons, but I hate her. And if she thinks she can just buy her way back into our lives, she's wrong. I didn't tell Emma that money had a way of making a lot of things possible, including changing narratives and swaying judges. I didn't tell her that I was terrified we might lose. Instead, I just held her hand and said, "We're going to fight. Whatever happens, we fight." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings with Rebecca, gathering documents, organizing evidence. I pulled out 13 years of records, school forms with my name listed as guardian, medical records showing I'd taken them to every appointment, photographs of birthday parties, holidays, graduations, proof of a life lived together, proof that I hadn't kidnapped anyone. I'd simply been the one who stayed. Rebecca built a timeline. March 2012. Sarah abandons children with no warning. No contact for 6 months. First child support check never arrives. First year 0 visits. Second year 0 visits. Third year, Sarah signs guardianship papers without contest officially giving me legal custody. Years 4 through 13 continued absence. No birthday cards, no Christmas presents, no phone calls, nothing. "This is strong," Rebecca said, reviewing the documents in her office. "We can prove abandonment. We can prove she voluntarily terminated her parental involvement. The question is whether the judge will believe her story about postpartum depression or see it for what it really is." "What about the kids?" I asked. "What about what they want?" "The guardian ad litem will interview them. That's the court-appointed attorney who represents their best interests. Emma and Lucas will also likely be asked to testify. Sophie's too young, but her therapist can provide testimony about her attachment to you." "They have to testify. They have to sit in front of Sarah and tell her they don't want her." Rebecca's expression softened. "Unfortunately, yes. Unless Sarah drops the suit, which I don't think she will. She's invested too much already." The preliminary hearing was set for a Tuesday in June. Rebecca warned me that Sarah would probably be there, that I'd have to see her for the first time in 13 years. I thought I was prepared. I wasn't. She walked into the courtroom like she owned it, her heels clicking on the tile floor with confidence I remembered from her teenage years back when she believed the world owed her everything. She wore a designer suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on groceries in 6 months. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup flawless. Next to her in my department store dress and sensible shoes, I felt small and old and poor. But then she saw me, and for just a second her mask slipped. I saw fear in her eyes. Good. She should be afraid. Her lawyer was exactly what I expected. Tall, expensive suit, the kind of smile that had nothing warm in it. He approached the bench with an ease that came from never having to fight for anything real. Sarah stayed a few steps behind him, playing the role of nervous mother trying to reunite with her children. Our side of the courtroom was emptier. Just me, Rebecca, and Gloria from my support group who'd come for moral support. But I'd brought something Sarah couldn't buy. 3 accordion folders full of 13 years of evidence that she'd thrown her kids away. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Margaret Huang. She looked tired, like she'd seen too many cases like this. She reviewed the initial petitions from both sides, her expression neutral. "This is a preliminary hearing to determine if there's sufficient cause to proceed with Ms. Patterson's petition for custody modification," Judge Huang said. "I've reviewed the initial filings. Ms. Patterson, your attorney is arguing that you suffered from severe postpartum depression following the birth of your youngest child, and that this condition led you to make the decision to temporarily place your children with their grandmother. Is that correct?" Sarah's lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client was suffering from a severe mental health crisis and made the difficult decision to seek treatment and stability before reuniting with her children. She's now in a position to provide an excellent home for Emma, Lucas, and Sophie." "Mrs. Chen," the judge turned to me, "your position is that Ms. Patterson voluntarily abandoned the children and that you've served as their primary caregiver for 13 years. You're asking the court to deny her petition." Rebecca stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We believe Ms. Patterson's petition is not in the best interests of the children who have formed their primary attachments with Mrs. Chen and would be severely harmed by being removed from the only stable home they've known." Judge Huang made some notes. "I'm ordering evaluation by a child psychologist for all 3 minors. I'm also appointing a guardian ad litem to represent the children's interests. We'll reconvene in 6 weeks for full testimony. Ms. Patterson, you are requesting visitation pending the custody hearing." Sarah's lawyer nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. My client hasn't seen her children in 13 years through no fault of her own. We believe supervised visitation would be appropriate to begin rebuilding their relationship." "Your Honor," Rebecca interjected, "the children have no relationship with Ms. Patterson. They don't know her. Forcing visitation at this stage would be traumatic, particularly given that they're aware she's trying to remove them from their home. They're her children counselor. They need to know their mother." The judge looked directly at Sarah for the first time. "Ms. Patterson, when was the last time you had contact with your children?" Sarah stood, and I watched her transform. Her voice got softer, more vulnerable, her eyes filled with tears that looked almost real. "Not since I left them with my mother, Your Honor. It's been the hardest thing I've ever been through. I was so sick, so depressed. I thought I was doing the right thing, giving them to someone who could care for them while I got help. I've spent 13 years working on myself, getting therapy, building a stable life so I could give them the home they deserve." "Yet you never called them?" the judge asked. "Never wrote, never sent child support. I was told by my therapist that contact might be harmful while I was still unstable, Your Honor, that I should wait until I was healthy enough to be the mother they needed. I know now that was wrong. I should have stayed in touch, but I was following medical advice, trying to do the right thing." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and call her a liar, but Rebecca's hand on my arm kept me seated. "Mrs. Chen," the judge said, "do you have documentation of attempts to contact Ms. Patterson during this period?" Rebecca stood again. "Yes, Your Honor. We have phone records showing numerous attempts to reach Ms. Patterson in the first year after she left the children. We also have emails and messages, all unanswered. We also have evidence that Ms. Patterson married and began a new life in California without any mention of the children." "I'd like to see that documentation," Judge Huang said, "along with any evidence regarding Ms. Patterson's claim of postpartum depression and treatment. Ms. Patterson, you'll need to sign releases for all medical records related to your mental health treatment during this period." I saw Sarah's lawyer lean in and whisper something to her. Her face went pale. So there were no medical records, no therapy, no treatment, just lies. "Your Honor," Sarah's lawyer said smoothly, "my client is willing to provide what records exist, but many of her treatment sessions were with a therapist who has since retired, and the records may be difficult to obtain." Judge Huang's expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in her eyes. She didn't believe it either. "You'll have 3 weeks to produce those records. Regarding visitation, I'm ordering supervised visits to begin in 2 weeks. 2 hours once a week at a neutral location with a court-appointed supervisor. We'll reassess after the full hearing." "Your Honor." Rebecca stood quickly. "We respectfully request that visitation be postponed until after the psychological evaluations. The children are currently in therapy processing this situation, and forced contact could be harmful." "Counselor, these children have been without their mother for 13 years. 2 hours a week of supervised contact is not going to harm them. Visitation will begin as ordered." The gavel came down, and it felt like a death sentence. I looked across the courtroom at Sarah, and this time when our eyes met, she smiled. Just a small curve of her lips, but it was there. She thought she was winning. Outside the courtroom, Emma was waiting with Gloria. She'd insisted on coming despite my protests. She took one look at my face and knew. What happened? The judge ordered visitation, 2 hours a week supervised. Emma's face went white. "I have to see her." "Just supervised visits for now, sweetheart, just until the full hearing." "I don't want to. Grandma, I can't." Her voice was rising, panic creeping in. "I can't sit there and pretend. I can't do it." "You don't have to pretend anything. You just have to show up. The supervisor will be there. I'll be right outside. You're not alone in this." "When 2 weeks." Emma turned and walked away, her shoulders shaking. Gloria went after her, and I heard her talking to Emma in low, soothing tones. Rebecca touched my arm. "That went better than I expected. Better she's going to force my kids to see that woman." Janet the judge didn't grant temporary custody. That's a win. And Sarah's lawyer looked nervous when the judge asked for medical records. "I don't think those records exist. We might be able to use that." 2 weeks, I said. 2 weeks, and I have to watch my kids walk into a room with someone who terrifies them. "We'll get through it, one step at a time." But I wasn't thinking about steps. I was thinking about Sarah's smile, about the way she'd looked at me like I was an obstacle to be removed, about how much money and good lawyers could do to twist the truth. I drove Emma home in silence. When we got there, Lucas and Sophie were sitting on the couch waiting. Gloria must have called ahead because they already knew. "I don't want to go," Sophie said immediately. "Please don't make me go." I sat between them, putting my arms around both kids. I know, baby. I know this is scary, but we have to follow the judge's orders. It's just 2 hours. The person who supervises will make sure everything's okay. What if she tries to take us? Lucas asked, his voice small and scared, in a way it hadn't been in years. What if she just puts us in a car and drives away? That's not going to happen. I promise you, Lucas. The visits are supervised. There will be an adult there the whole time making sure you're safe. And Grandma will be right outside waiting for you. I still don't understand why she wants us now, Sophie said. Why didn't she want us before? It was the question they'd all been asking in different ways, and I didn't have a good answer. How do you tell children that their mother sees them as assets now instead of responsibilities, that they'd become valuable in her eyes, not because she loved them, but because they came with inheritance and a story she could sell? Sometimes people make mistakes, I said carefully, and sometimes they realize too late what they've lost. Your mom says she was sick when she left and that she's better now. Do you believe her? Emma asked, coming into the room. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady now. I'd never lied to these kids about anything important, and I wasn't going to start now. No, sweetie, I don't. Then why do we have to see her? Because legally she has rights, and we have to prove that taking you away from here would hurt you more than it would help. The judge needs to see that for herself. The 2 weeks passed too quickly. I took the kids to Dr. Morrison, their therapist, who helped them prepare for the visit. She taught them grounding techniques for when they felt anxious. She reminded them that they didn't have to pretend to feel things they didn't feel. She told them they were brave. But when the day came, none of them felt brave. They felt terrified. The visitation center was a cheerful building designed to put children at ease, with colorful walls and toys and games scattered around. But no amount of cheerful decoration could mask what this place was for kids and parents who weren't allowed to be alone together, for families that were broken in ways that required supervision to keep everyone safe. The supervisor was a kind-looking woman named Patricia, who met us in the waiting room. She explained the rules. I would stay in the waiting area. The kids would go into the visitation room with Sarah. Patricia would be present the entire time. If anyone became uncomfortable or distressed, the visit would end immediately. Do you kids have any questions? Patricia asked. Sophie raised her hand like she was in school. What if we don't know what to say to her? That's okay, honey. You don't have to say anything you don't want to. This is your time. You get to decide how to use it. What if she asks us to come live with her? Lucas asked. Patricia knelt down so she was eye level with him. Then you can tell her how you feel, or you don't have to answer at all. Whatever makes you comfortable. Emma hadn't said a word since we'd arrived. She stood slightly apart from her siblings, her arms crossed her face, set in an expression I'd seen before when she was trying not to cry. Then the door opened, and Sarah walked in. I hadn't seen her up close since the courtroom. She'd dressed down for this, probably on her lawyer's advice. Jeans and a soft sweater instead of her designer suits. Minimal makeup. She was trying to look like a regular mom, approachable and warm, but her eyes gave her away. They were calculating, assessing, determining how to play this. Emma, Lucas, Sophie, she said, her voice breaking slightly on their names. More performance. Oh my God, you're so big. You're so beautiful. She reached out like she was going to hug them, and all 3 kids took a step back. Sarah's arms dropped, and for a moment, real emotion crossed her face. Hurt, rejection. But then the mask came back. I know this is strange, she said. I know it's been a long time, but I've missed you so much. I've thought about you every single day. Then why didn't you call? Emma's voice was cold flat. We had the same phone number the whole time. Sarah's eyes flickered to me standing behind the kids, and I saw accusation there. Like I'd coached Emma to say that. Like Emma needed coaching to ask the obvious question. Patricia, Sarah said, turning to the supervisor, can we go into the visitation room now? I'd like to talk to my children privately. Patricia nodded and gestured toward the door. The kids looked back at me, and I tried to give them an encouraging smile, even though my heart was breaking. I'll be right here, I said. The whole time, right here. They followed Patricia and Sarah into the room, and the door closed behind them. I sank into one of the waiting room chairs, my hands shaking. Gloria had offered to come, but I'd told her I needed to do this alone. Now I regretted that decision. The silence was crushing. 95 minutes. That's how long it took before the door opened again. 5 minutes shorter than the required 2 hours, but I'd take it. The kids came out first. Sophie's face was blotchy from crying, Lucas looked shell-shocked, and Emma's jaw was so tight I worried she'd crack a tooth. Sarah emerged behind them, and she was crying too. But these tears looked real, not performed. She looked devastated. "Same time next week," Patricia said quietly, making notes on her clipboard. Sarah nodded, not looking at me, and walked out of the center without another word. I gathered the kids close, and we left without talking to anyone. In the car, nobody spoke for 5 minutes. Then Sophie said in a small voice, "She wants to take us to California. She said we'd love it there, that we'd have our own rooms in a big house and go to a fancy school." "What did you say?" I asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "I said I like my room now. I said I like my school. She said I'd change my mind when I saw it." Lucas was staring out the window. "She showed us pictures of the house. It has a pool and everything. She said we could get a dog." "She doesn't know anything about us," Emma said suddenly. Her voice was shaking with anger. "She asked me what grade I was in. I'm 15 years old, and she had to ask what grade I'm in. She didn't know Lucas likes art. She didn't know Sophie wants to be a writer. She called me Emily twice. My name is Emma. I've been Emma my whole life, and she called me Emily." I pulled the car over, unable to drive safely while listening to this. "Come here," I said, and all 3 kids unbuckled and crowded into the front seat with me tangled together in a messy hug that didn't fit but didn't matter. "We told her no," Emma said into my shoulder. "She asked if we wanted to come live with her, and we all said no. Sophie said it first, actually." "I did," Sophie said, pride mixing with her tears. "I said no thank you, I want to stay with Grandma. And Lucas said me too, and then Emma told her." "Told her what, sweetie?" Emma pulled back enough to look at me. "I told her that she's not my mother, that you are, that she gave up the right to call herself our mother when she left. And I told her that if the judge makes us go live with her, we'll run away. All 3 of us. We'll run away and we'll find you, and she can't stop us." "Emma, you can't say things like that." "Why not? It's true. We're not going, Grandma. We're not leaving you. I don't care what any judge says." I held them tighter. These 3 fierce, loyal, broken-hearted kids who'd already been abandoned once and were determined not to let it happen again. And I made them a promise I hoped I could keep. "You're not going anywhere," I said. "I will fight for you with everything I have. We're going to win this." But even as I said it, I thought about Sarah's smile in the courtroom, about her expensive lawyers and carefully crafted narrative, about how the law often favored biological parents even when they didn't deserve it. And I wondered if promises were enough to keep a family together when money and lawyers were trying to tear it apart. The second visit was worse than the first. Sarah arrived with wrapped presents, expensive toys that showed how little she knew about her own children. A makeup kit for Emma, who never wore makeup. A sports jersey for Lucas, who hated sports. A doll for Sophie, who at 11 was far too old for dolls and had been reading Stephen King novels for the past year. "I thought you might like these." Sarah said, her smile bright and fake as she handed them out in the visitation room. I watched through the observation window that Patricia had quietly shown me a one-way mirror that let supervisors monitor visits without being intrusive. I shouldn't have been watching. It was torture. But I couldn't look away. Emma took the makeup kit and set it on the table without opening it. "Thanks. You could at least look at it," Sarah said, and there was an edge to her voice now. "Do you know how much that cost? It's from Sephora. Girls your age love makeup." "I'm not interested in makeup." "Well, maybe you should be. You're 15 now. You should start caring about your appearance. When I was your age, I always made sure I looked nice." Emma's hands clenched into fists. "I look fine." "I didn't say you didn't. I'm just trying to help. Mothers help their daughters with these things." "You're not my mother." The words hung in the air like a grenade. Sarah's face went white, then red. "Excuse me." Ladies, Patricia interjected gently, let's take a breath. Emma, your mom brought you a gift. Even if it's not something you use, we can appreciate the thought behind it, right? But Emma wasn't backing down. The thought behind it is that she doesn't know me at all. She doesn't know any of us. She's trying to buy us with expensive presents because that's all she has, money. But she doesn't have what matters. She doesn't know that Lucas draws every single day and he's actually really talented. She doesn't know that Sophie reads at a college level. She doesn't know that I want to be a doctor and I've already been accepted into a pre-med summer program. She knows nothing about our lives because she wasn't there for our lives. I was sick, Sarah said, and now she was crying. I was so sick, Emma. I had postpartum depression so bad I could barely function. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I was afraid I'd hurt you. I was trying to protect you. By never calling, by never writing, by telling magazines you didn't have kids. Emma pulled out her phone. I found this article from 2 years ago. They asked you about children, and you said, and I quote, Derek and I chose not to have children because we valued our freedom. Not you have children. Not you left your children. You acted like we didn't exist. Sarah's lawyer must have prepared her for this because she didn't even flinch. I was in therapy. My therapist advised me to separate from my past until I was healthy enough to reclaim it. I was following medical advice. Show me the medical records then. Show me proof you were even in therapy. Emma, Patricia said more firmly now, this isn't appropriate for visitation. These are questions for the lawyers and the judge. No, Emma stood up. These are questions for her. She wants us to believe she's this poor sick woman who had no choice, but I don't believe her. I think she left because she wanted to, and now she wants us back because Grandma inherited money and suddenly we're worth something to her. Sarah stood too, her face twisted with anger. That's what she told you, isn't it? Your grandmother poisoned you against me. She's been filling your head with lies for 13 years. Grandma never talks about you, Emma shouted. We had to beg her to tell us anything. She always tried to protect you, tried to make excuses for why you left. But I'm old enough now to know the truth. You left because you're selfish. You left because being a mother was too hard, and your new life was easier. And now you want us back for the same selfish reasons. This isn't about love. This is about looking good and getting access to Grandma's inheritance. Sarah moved toward Emma, and Patricia stepped between them. Mrs. Patterson, please sit down. She's my daughter. I have a right to discipline her when she's disrespectful. You don't have any rights, Lucas shouted, speaking for the first time. You gave them up when you left. You don't get to come back now and act like you're our parent. Sophie started crying, overwhelmed by all the shouting. Emma immediately went to her, wrapping her arms around her little sister. It's okay, Soph. It's okay. I think we need to end this visit early, Patricia said, her hand on the door handle. Everyone's too upset to continue productively. No, Sarah said desperately. Please, I have an hour left. I need this time with them. Mrs. Patterson, the purpose of these visits is to rebuild relationships, not to create more trauma. We'll try again next week. Sarah looked at her 3 children clustered together, Emma and Lucas, forming a protective barrier around Sophie, and something crumbled in her face. For just a moment, I saw real grief there, real recognition of what she'd lost. But then her expression hardened again. This is Janet's fault, she said. She's turned them against me. She's been telling them lies, manipulating them. I want that in my report. Patricia made a note on her clipboard, her expression neutral. I report what I observe, Mrs. Patterson. What I observed today was 3 children who don't know you and are frightened by your attempt to force a relationship. We'll discuss this in my written evaluation. The kids came out shaking. This time I didn't wait for them to reach me. I met them halfway and pulled all 3 into my arms right there in the hallway, while Sarah watched from the doorway, her face a mask of rage and pain. You're poisoning them, she hissed at me as we passed. You're destroying any chance they have of knowing their real mother. I stopped and turned to face her. For 13 years, I'd imagined what I'd say if I ever saw my daughter again. I'd rehearsed speeches in my head, angry words and hurt accusations. But now looking at this stranger wearing my daughter's face, I felt only sadness. I didn't have to poison them, Sarah. You did that yourself when you disappeared from their lives. These kids don't hate you because of anything I said. They hate you because of what you did. And no amount of money or lawyers or manufactured tears is going to change that. We'll see what the judge says. Yes, I said quietly. We will. In the car on the way home, Emma was eerily calm. Too calm. I want to testify, she said, at the hearing. I want to tell the judge everything. Emma, testifying is really hard. You'd have to answer questions from Sarah's lawyer. He'll try to make you doubt yourself, try to twist your words. I don't care. Let him try. I know the truth. I lived it. Lucas nodded. Me too. I want to testify too. Are you sure, both of you? Grandma. Emma turned in her seat to look at me. You've been protecting us our whole lives. Let us protect you now. Let us tell our story. That night, after the kids were in bed, Rebecca called. Patricia sent me her preliminary notes from today's visit. It didn't go well for Sarah. That's putting it mildly. Janet, Patricia's report is going to be damning. She documented Sarah's inability to connect with the children, her attempt to buy their affection with inappropriate gifts, and her angry outburst when confronted with her absence. This is good for us. Emma wants to testify. So does Lucas. There was a pause. Are you sure they're ready for that? No, but they're determined. And honestly, Rebecca, their testimony might be what saves us. The judge needs to hear from them directly. Okay, I'll prepare them. We'll do practice sessions, help them understand what to expect. But Janet, you need to prepare yourself too. Sarah's lawyer is going to come after you hard. He's going to paint you as someone who deliberately alienated the children from their mother. He's going to suggest you've been after Sarah's money all along, that you encouraged her to sign the guardianship papers so you could keep the kids. That's insane. That's what they're going to argue, and they're going to bring up the inheritance. They're going to suggest you only took the kids because you knew Margaret was wealthy and you expected to inherit. Margaret's will was only changed last year. I've had these kids for 13 years. I know, but they'll twist it. They'll say you've always been motivated by financial gain, that you manipulated both Margaret and Sarah. It's going to get ugly. I thought about those early years, the ones where I counted every penny, where I sold my car and shopped at thrift stores, and sometimes went to bed hungry so the kids could eat. The years where financial gain was the furthest thing from my mind because I was too busy trying to keep 3 traumatized children fed and clothed and loved. Let them say what they want. The truth is on our side. But truth, I was learning, didn't always matter as much as you'd hope when lawyers got involved. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. Rebecca's office became our second home. She worked with Emma and Lucas on their testimony, teaching them how to answer questions clearly, how to stay calm under pressure, how to recognize when a lawyer was trying to trick them. They're going to ask you about Grandma, Rebecca told Emma during one session. They're going to ask if she ever said bad things about your mom. She didn't, Emma said. Grandma always tried to defend her. It drove me crazy sometimes because I wanted to be angry, and Grandma kept saying maybe Mom was sick, maybe she had her reasons. That's good. That's exactly what you tell them. They're also going to ask about the inheritance, about whether Grandma changed after she got money. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. She bought a better car and paid off the house. That's it. We still shop at Target. We still eat at home most nights. Grandma didn't change at all, except she stopped looking so tired all the time. The court-appointed psychologist, Dr. Valerie Santos, met with each child separately over several weeks. She was a gentle woman with kind eyes who specialized in childhood trauma and attachment. After her final session with Sophie, she asked to meet with me. Mrs. Chen, she said, settling into her chair with a thick folder of notes. I've completed my evaluation of the children. I'll be submitting my full report to the court next week, but I wanted to discuss my findings with you first. My heart was pounding. What did you find? All 3 children show clear primary attachment to you. Emma and Lucas both present as mature, well-adjusted teenagers who have processed their abandonment trauma in healthy ways, largely due to consistent therapy and your stable presence in their lives. Sophie, while younger, shows no attachment to Sarah Patterson at all. In psychological terms, Mrs. Chen, you are these children's mother in every way that matters. What about Sarah? Do they have any bond with her? None. Emma and Lucas remember her abandonment and have significant unresolved anger. Sophie has no memory of her at all and views her as a threatening stranger. Forcing custody to Sarah at this point would be, in my professional opinion, psychologically devastating. Will the judge listen to that? Dr. Santos closed her folder. I can only give my professional opinion. What the judge does with it is out of my hands. But I will say this. I've been doing this work for 20 years. I've seen a lot of parents who shouldn't have their children. Sarah Patterson is one of them, not because she's cruel or abusive, but because she's absent. She has been absent in every meaningful way for 13 years, and now she wants to waltz back in and claim motherhood. That's not how attachment works. That's not how families work. I felt tears burning in my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to be cross-examined by Sarah's lawyer, and he's going to try to discredit my findings. But I stand by them. These kids belong with you. The week before the hearing, Sarah requested one final supervised visit. The kids didn't want to go, but Rebecca said it was important they show they were willing to try. If you refuse, Sarah's lawyer will argue you're being kept from your mother against your will. This visit was different. Sarah was subdued, almost defeated. She didn't bring presents. She didn't make grand pronouncements about their future life together. She just sat across from them in the visitation room and looked sad. I know you don't believe me, she said quietly, but I did love you. I do love you. I was just so lost when I left, so confused about who I was supposed to be. You were supposed to be our mother, Lucas said. That's who you were supposed to be. I know, and I failed at that. But Emma, Lucas, Sophie, I'm asking you to give me another chance. Let me prove I can be better. Let me show you that I've changed. Emma leaned forward. Have you really changed? Or do you just want us because of Grandma's money? Is that really what you think, that I'm doing this for money? What else am I supposed to think? You were fine without us for 13 years. You built a whole life that had no room for us in it. And then suddenly, Grandma inherits some money and you want us back. It looks pretty obvious from where I'm sitting. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. You have every right to be angry, every right to hate me. But Emma, I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything? Biology doesn't make you a mother, Emma said, and her voice was steady, certain. Showing up makes you a mother. Being there when we're sick makes you a mother. Helping with homework and going to soccer games and braiding hair and wiping tears, that's what makes you a mother. And you didn't do any of those things. Grandma did. So no, being my biological mother doesn't mean anything to me anymore. You gave up that title when you left. Sarah turned to Lucas. What about you? Do you feel the same way? Lucas looked at his hands. He was quieter than Emma, more internal with his feelings. I used to dream about you coming back. For years. Every time a car drove past, I'd look to see if it was you. Every phone call, I thought maybe it would be you. And then one day I realized you weren't coming back, and I had to figure out how to be okay with that. Now you are back, but it's too late. I don't know you. You're just some lady who used to be my mom. Sophie. Sarah's voice was desperate now. Baby, what about you? Sophie looked up, her eyes wide and frightened. I don't want to go with you. I want to stay with Grandma. Please don't make me go. Patricia was writing notes, quickly documenting every word. Sarah saw her and seemed to realize this wasn't going the way she'd planned. You've made up your minds then, all of you. Nothing I say will matter. You could have called, Emma said. Any time in the last 13 years you could have picked up the phone, but you didn't. So yeah, we've made up our minds. The visit ended quietly without shouting this time, but somehow the silence felt worse. Sarah left without looking back, and I watched her walk to her rental car. Her shoulders slumped. For just a second I felt sorry for her. She'd destroyed the most important relationships of her life for what, a career freedom money. And now she was realizing what she'd lost, but it was too late to get it back. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs and found Emma in the kitchen, also awake, sitting at the table with a cup of tea. Can't sleep either, she asked. Too nervous. I sat down across from her. Emma, tomorrow's going to be hard. Are you sure you're ready? I'm ready. Grandma, I need you to know something. No matter what happens, no matter what the judge decides, you're my mom. You raised me. You saved me. And I will never forget that. Oh, sweetheart. I reached across the table and took her hand. You saved me too. All three of you. After your grandfather died, I was so lost. And then you kids came along and gave me a purpose again. Gave me a reason to wake up every morning. You think I sacrificed for you, but really you gave me everything. Tomorrow when I testify, I'm going to tell them that. I'm going to tell them what kind of person you are, what you've done for us. Just tell the truth, honey. That's all you have to do. The truth is that you're the best person I know, and if the judge can't see that, then the system is broken. The next morning we all dressed carefully. Emma wore a simple blue dress that made her look older than 15. Lucas wore a button-down shirt and khakis, looking uncomfortable but determined. Sophie wore her favorite purple dress, the one that made her feel brave. The courthouse was already crowded when we arrived. Rebecca met us outside, her briefcase full of documents and evidence. Remember, she said to the kids, "Tell the truth. Stay calm. If you don't understand a question, ask them to repeat it. You're going to do great." Sarah was already inside with her legal team. She'd brought 3 lawyers, all expensive suits and confident smiles. Derek was with her, his hand on her back in a show of support. He'd never met the children. In 13 years, he'd never once asked to meet them. Judge Huang called the court to order and the hearing began. Sarah's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a young mother who'd suffered from severe mental illness and made the heartbreaking decision to seek treatment rather than risk harming her children. He talked about her recovery, her successful career, her stable marriage. He showed photos of their San Francisco mansion, the bedrooms they'd prepared for the children, the private school they'd already been accepted to. "My client deeply regrets the time she lost with her children," he said, "but she's asking this court for a chance to make it right, to finally be the mother these children deserve. They are her children, Your Honor. Biology matters. The bond between mother and child is sacred, and Sarah Patterson wants nothing more than to repair that bond." Then it was Rebecca's turn. She stood slowly, deliberately, and began to dismantle Sarah's story, piece by piece. She showed phone records proving Sarah had never returned calls, email chains showing unanswered messages, the magazine interview where Sarah claimed to be childless, financial records showing not 1 penny of child support in 13 years. "Your Honor," Rebecca said, "Ms. Patterson wants us to believe she was too sick to contact her children for 13 years. But she wasn't too sick to get married. She wasn't too sick to build a career. She wasn't too sick to travel the world. She was only too sick to be a mother." And now, conveniently timed after Mrs. Chen inherited a substantial estate, Ms. Patterson wants to claim her children back. This isn't about love. This isn't about family. This is about money and image, and these children deserve better. Sarah's lawyer objected, claiming speculation. The judge sustained it, but I could see Rebecca had planted the seed. Then came the witnesses. Dr. Santos testified about her psychological evaluation, explaining in clinical terms what I already knew in my heart. These children had no bond with Sarah. Removing them from my home would cause severe psychological harm. Sarah's lawyer cross-examined her aggressively. "Dr. Santos, isn't it true that children can form new attachments, that with time and therapy, these children could bond with their biological mother?" "In theory, yes. But, Your Honor, these children are teenagers, not toddlers. Their identities are already formed. Their attachments are already established. You can't simply transfer them to a stranger and expect healthy adjustment. A stranger, Ms. Patterson, is their biological mother. Biologically, yes. But attachment isn't about biology. It's about presence. It's about who shows up day after day, year after year. And that person has been Janet Chen." Patricia, the visitation supervisor, testified next. She described the disastrous visits in detail, Sarah's inability to connect with the children, her attempts to buy their affection, her anger when rejected. "In my professional opinion," Patricia concluded, "forcing these children into Ms. Patterson's custody would be traumatic. They have explicitly stated they don't want to go, and I believe them. This isn't a case of a child being manipulated. This is a case of children who lived through abandonment and are protecting themselves from being hurt again. Then it was time for the kids to testify. Emma went first. She walked to the witness stand with her head high, and I'd never been more proud of her. Sarah's lawyer started gentle. "Emma, you love your grandmother, don't you?" "Very much." "And you're grateful for everything she's done for you, more than I can say. You wouldn't want to hurt her, would you? You wouldn't want her to be alone." Emma saw where this was going. "No, I wouldn't want to hurt her, but that's not why I want to stay with her. I want to stay with her because she's my mother in every way that matters." "But Sarah Patterson is your biological mother. Don't you think you owe her a chance?" "I owe her nothing," Emma said, and her voice was clear and strong. "She left us. She chose her new life over us, and now she wants us back, but not because she loves us, because we come with an inheritance and a good story. I'm not stupid. I can see what this is really about." "That's a very serious accusation, Emma. Do you have any proof your mother wants you for financial reasons?" "She told a magazine 2 years ago that she didn't have children. She erased us from her life story because we didn't fit the image she wanted. Now suddenly she's telling people she's fighting to reunite with her kids. What changed?" "The only thing that changed is Grandma inherited money. You do the math." Sarah's lawyer tried a different approach. "Emma, has your grandmother ever said negative things about your mother?" "No. Actually, it's the opposite. Grandma always tried to defend her, always made excuses for why she left. It used to make me angry because I wanted someone to validate my feelings, to say, yeah, what your mom did was terrible. But Grandma never did. She always said maybe Mom was sick, maybe she had her reasons. Even when I hated Mom, Grandma tried to help me not hate her." "But you do hate her." Emma paused, thinking carefully. "No, I don't hate her. I don't really feel anything for her. She's just someone who used to be in my life and isn't anymore. I don't know her well enough to hate her." Rebecca's questions were simpler. "Emma, where do you want to live?" "With Grandma." "Why?" "Because she's my family. Because she's been there for every important moment of my life. Because when I'm scared or hurt or happy, she's the person I want to tell. Because home isn't where you're born, it's where you're loved. And I'm loved with Grandma." Lucas's testimony was shorter, but just as powerful. He described his early memories of Sarah leaving, of not understanding why Mommy wasn't coming back. He talked about the nightmares he used to have, the therapy that helped him process the abandonment. And he talked about me, about how I'd been the one constant in his chaotic early life. "Do you want a relationship with Sarah Patterson?" Rebecca asked him. "I don't know, maybe someday. But not like this. Not with her trying to force it. Not with her trying to take us away from Grandma. If she really cared about us, she'd respect what we want, and we want to stay home." Then Sarah took the stand, and I watched my daughter spin her story. She cried at all the right moments. She talked about her mental health struggles, her therapy, her long road to recovery. She claimed she'd stayed away because her therapist advised her to, because she didn't want to hurt the children while she was still unstable. "But you never sent child support," Rebecca pointed out. "You never sent birthday cards. You never made any attempt to maintain even minimal contact." "I was advised not to," Sarah insisted. "I was following professional guidance." "Then you can provide those medical records, the ones showing this professional guidance." Sarah's lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, we've been unable to locate all of my client's medical records. The practice she attended has since closed, and many records were lost." "How convenient," Rebecca said dryly. "Ms. Ortiz," Judge Huang warned, but Rebecca wasn't done. "Ms. Patterson, you gave an interview 2 years ago where you stated you and your husband chose not to have children. Were you following professional guidance when you said that too?" "I was trying to move forward with my life. I was trying to heal. By pretending your children didn't exist. I was protecting myself. But not them." Rebecca pulled out more documents. "These are social media posts from your accounts over the past 13 years. Hundreds of posts about your life, your career, your travels. Not one single mention of your children, not one photo, not one post saying you miss them or hope to reunite with them someday. Nothing. Does that sound like a mother fighting to recover and reunite with her children?" Sarah had no good answer for that. She stumbled through explanations about privacy, about not wanting to exploit her children, but even she didn't sound convinced. "Ms. Patterson," Rebecca said quietly, "isn't the truth that you simply didn't want to be a mother anymore? That you chose your career and your new life over your children, and now you want them back because they've become valuable to you? No, I love my children." Then why did it take you 13 years to fight for them? Why now? Why not when they were 7 and 5 and 3 and needed their mother desperately? Why not when Mrs. Chen was struggling to raise 3 children on a fixed income? Why wait until now when she's inherited money and you want access to it? That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a woman who abandoned her responsibilities and now wants the benefits without having done any of the work. Sarah was crying now, but they didn't look like strategic tears anymore. They looked real. "I made a mistake," she said. "I know I did, but I'm asking for a chance to fix it. Please, they're my children." Rebecca looked at her for a long moment. "They were your children, Miss Patterson. Now they're Janet Chen's because she showed up. She did the work. She earned the title of mother. And you can't just buy that back no matter how many lawyers you hire." The judge called a recess, and we all filed out into the hallway. Emma was shaking. Lucas looked exhausted, and Sophie, who thankfully didn't have to testify, clung to my side. "You did so well," I told Emma and Lucas. "I'm so proud of you both." "Do you think it was enough?" Emma asked. "I don't know, sweetheart, but you told the truth. That's all we can do." Sarah walked past us with her legal team, not looking at any of us. But Derek stopped. He looked at the kids for a long moment, seeing them up close for the first time in his life. Then he turned to Sarah. "They don't want to come with us," he said quietly. "Derek, not now." "Sarah, look at them. Really look at them. They're terrified. They don't know us. Maybe we should reconsider this." "We're not reconsidering anything. They're my children, and that woman stole them from me." "That woman raised them while you were busy pretending they didn't exist." His voice was sharp now. "I went along with this because you said you missed them, that you wanted to make things right. But this isn't about them, is it? This is about proving you can win. This is about ego and money and your image, and I'm done being part of it." He walked away, and Sarah stood there, mouth open, watching her carefully constructed support system crumble. Then she looked at me, and I saw her mask slip completely. Behind all the tears and claims of maternal love, there was just rage, pure undiluted rage that I had what she'd thrown away. "This isn't over," she said. "I think it is," I replied. "You already lost, Sarah. You lost 13 years ago when you drove away. This is just making it official." Court reconvened an hour later for closing arguments. Sarah's lawyer made one final plea about the sanctity of the mother-child bond, about Sarah's right to parent her children, about the importance of biology and blood. Rebecca stood and looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, this case is simple. 3 children were abandoned by their biological mother. They were raised by their grandmother who sacrificed everything to give them a stable, loving home. Now, after 13 years of absence, the biological mother wants them back. Not because she loves them. Not because she spent 13 years fighting to reunite with them, but because it's convenient for her now, because they come with money and a story she can tell at her society dinners. These children have begged this court not to send them. They've clearly articulated their wishes. They know who their mother is, and it's not Sarah Patterson, it's Janet Chen. And I'm asking this court to recognize that and deny Ms. Patterson's petition." Judge Huang looked tired. She'd heard hours of testimony, seen the evidence, watched 3 children beg not to be taken from the only home they'd ever really known. She glanced at her notes, then at Sarah, then at me. "I'll have my decision in 1 week," she said. "Court is adjourned." And just like that, it was over. All the preparation, all the testimony, all the tears and anger and fear, and now we just had to wait. Wait, and hope that truth and love and 13 years of showing up would be enough to keep my family together. That week felt like the longest of my life. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. Every time I checked my email, my hands shook. The kids were just as bad. Emma checked her phone obsessively. Lucas barely ate. Sophie had nightmares every night and crawled into my bed, something she hadn't done since she was 6. On the third day of waiting, Rebecca called. I just got off the phone with Sarah's lawyer. My stomach dropped. And he wanted to discuss a settlement. Sarah's willing to drop the custody petition if you agree to monthly visitation and share information about the kids' lives. Share information like what? Report cards, medical updates, that kind of thing. And she wants the kids to spend 2 weeks every summer in California with her. Absolutely not. 2 weeks, she can't even handle 2 hours without it turning into a disaster. Janet, I know you're angry, but a settlement might be our best option. If the judge rules in Sarah's favor even partially, she could order joint custody. That would mean the kids splitting time between houses, possibly moving to California for part of the year. A settlement gives us control. What do the kids want? That's up to you to find out, but think about it carefully. A settlement means this ends now. No more court dates, no more uncertainty. Sarah gets limited supervised visitation, you keep primary custody, and everyone moves on. I hung up and called a family meeting. The 4 of us sat in the living room, and I explained what Sarah's lawyer had proposed. No way, Emma said immediately. 2 weeks in California, with her absolutely not. What if it's better than the alternative? I asked gently. What if the judge rules that you have to spend half the year there? Emma's face went pale. You think we might lose? I don't know, sweetheart. Rebecca thinks we have a strong case, but judges can be unpredictable. They tend to favor biological parents, and Sarah has money for good lawyers. A settlement would guarantee you stay here with me. But we'd have to see her, Lucas said, every month, and spend 2 weeks with her in the summer. Supervised visits monthly, and the summer visits could also be supervised if we negotiate that. Sophie started crying. I don't want to go there. I don't want to leave home. You wouldn't be leaving home, baby. You'd just be visiting, and you'd come right back. What do you think we should do, Grandma? Emma asked. I looked at these 3 kids who'd been through so much already, who'd had their sense of safety shattered once, and were terrified it would happen again. I think we should wait for the judge's decision. I think we fought too hard to give up now, but it's not just my decision. You're old enough to have a say. Then I say we wait, Emma said. I say we trust that the judge saw the truth, that she saw Sarah for what she is. Lucas nodded. I agree. We don't settle. We finish this. Sophie wiped her eyes. I want to stay with you, Grandma, whatever it takes. I called Rebecca back. Tell Sarah's lawyer no deal. We're waiting for the judge's ruling. Are you sure? I'm sure. These kids deserve better than being bargaining chips in a settlement. They deserve a judge to rule that they belong here. Okay? I hope you're right about this, Janet. So do I. The next 4 days crawled by. I tried to keep things normal, but there was an undercurrent of tension in everything we did. Emma snapped at Lucas over nothing. Lucas retreated into his art spending hours in his room, drawing dark, angry sketches. Sophie followed me everywhere, terrified I'd disappear if she let me out of her sight. On day 6, Rebecca called again. Sarah fired her legal team. What? All 3 lawyers, gone. Her husband Derek apparently filed for separation 2 days ago. The whole thing's falling apart. Why would he leave now? I talked to one of her former lawyers off the record. Apparently Derek finally realized this wasn't about maternal love. He confronted Sarah about the timing of the lawsuit, about why she suddenly wanted the kids back right after your inheritance. She admitted she was angry that you got Margaret's money, that she felt entitled to it since she's the biological parent. Derek was horrified. He told her she was trying to use the kids as a way to access your inheritance, and when she didn't deny it strongly enough, he walked out. I sat down heavily. So it was about the money, all of it. It looks that way. Without Derek's support and without her legal team, Sarah's case is falling apart. But Janet, she hired a new lawyer. Some guy who advertises on bus benches. I don't think he's even looked at the case file yet. The judge is going to notice the chaos. Is that good or bad for us? Good, I think. It makes Sarah look unstable, disorganized, like she's not capable of providing a stable home. But it also makes her look desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things. Be careful. That night, Sarah called my house. It was the first time I'd heard from her directly since the court hearing. Emma answered the phone and immediately hung up when she heard her mother's voice. The phone rang again. "Don't answer it," I told Emma, but Lucas picked up before I could stop him. "Hello." I watched his face change as he listened. "No," he said quietly. "No, I don't want to talk to you. Because you're trying to take us away from Grandma. Because you left us, and now you want us back for the wrong reasons. No, stop calling here." He hung up his hands, shaking. The phone rang again. This time I answered. "Stop calling," I said. "You're upsetting the kids." "Janet, please." Sarah's voice was thick with tears. Real ones this time, I thought. "Please, I need to talk to them. Everything's falling apart. Derek left me. My lawyers quit. I lost my job because all the publicity made the firm uncomfortable. I have nothing left. You have exactly what you chose 13 years ago. Freedom, no responsibilities, no children tying you down. I made a mistake. Can't you see that? Can't you forgive me?" "This isn't about forgiveness, Sarah. This is about what's best for those kids. And what's best for them is stability, which you've never been able to provide. They're my children." "No," I said, and my voice was steady and sure. "They were your children. You gave them away. You don't get to take that back just because your life didn't turn out the way you planned." "The judge hasn't ruled yet. I could still win." "Do you really want to? Do you really want 3 kids who hate you, who'll spend every moment with you wishing they were somewhere else? What kind of life is that? Better than losing them forever. You lost them the day you drove away and never looked back. This is just making it official." I hung up and unplugged the phone. The kids were all watching me. "Is she going to keep trying?" Sophie asked. "I don't know, baby, but we're not going to let her scare us. We're just going to keep living our lives and trust that the truth will come out." But that night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Sarah's voice, the desperation in it. Rebecca was right. Desperate people did unpredictable things. The next morning, day 7, I woke up to find police cars outside my house. 2 officers were standing on my porch. My heart stopped. "Mrs. Chen," one of them said when I opened the door, "we need to ask you some questions. Sarah Patterson filed a report claiming you're holding her children against their will." "That's insane. I have legal guardianship. The court knows exactly where these kids are. We still need to verify their well-being. Can we see the children?" Emma appeared behind me, still in her pajamas. "We're fine. We're here because we want to be here. Our mother is lying." The second officer, a woman with kind eyes, looked at Emma. "You're Emma?" "Yes." "And you want to be here? You're not being held against your will or pressured to stay." "I'm not being held anywhere. This is my home. This is where I belong." Lucas and Sophie came downstairs, drawn by the commotion. The officers talked to each of them separately, verifying they were safe, healthy, and wanted to be there. After 20 minutes, they seemed satisfied. "Mrs. Chen, we have to file a report, but it's clear these children are well cared for and here voluntarily. Ms. Patterson's claim appears to be unfounded." "She's trying to manipulate the system," I said. "She knows the judge is about to rule and she's panicking." "That's not for us to determine, but we'll note in our report that the children are safe and appear happy in your care." After they left, Emma was furious. "She called the cops on you. She's trying to make you look like a criminal." "She's desperate and running out of options." "I hate her," Sophie said. And hearing those words from my sweet, gentle 11-year-old broke something in me. "Don't say that, baby." "Why not? It's true. She left us, and now she's trying to hurt the person who took care of us. How are we supposed to feel?" I didn't have a good answer for that. At 2:00 that afternoon, Rebecca called. "The judge has her ruling. We need to be in court tomorrow at 10. "Tomorrow?" She moved it up after Sarah filed that police report. "I think Judge Huang is concerned about the situation escalating. Janet, are you ready for this?" "I don't know. Am I going to lose them?" "I honestly don't know. But whatever happens, we'll deal with it together." That night, none of us could eat dinner. We sat at the table pushing food around our plates, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Emma spoke. "If we lose tomorrow, if the judge says we have to go with her, we're not going." "Emma, we have to follow the law." No, we'll run away, all three of us. We'll disappear before we let her take us. You can't run forever. We can try. Her eyes were blazing with determination. I'm serious, Grandma. I'm not going with her. I don't care what any judge says. Me neither. Lucas agreed. Sophie just nodded, tears streaming down her face. I looked at these three fierce, loyal kids and felt my heart break and swell at the same time. Let's just wait and see what the judge says. Maybe it won't come to that. But if it does, Emma pressed. If it does, we'll figure it out. Together, as a family. That seemed to satisfy them, at least temporarily. That night I lay awake running through every possible scenario. What would I do if the judge ruled in Sarah's favor? Could I really watch them be taken away? Could I let Emma make good on her threat to run? At 3 a.m, I got up and went to my office. I pulled out my laptop and started transferring money, setting up accounts the court couldn't easily trace. If we had to disappear, we'd need resources. I hated that I was even thinking this way, hated that I was considering breaking the law. But I'd already raised these kids for 13 years. I wasn't going to lose them now. I made copies of all their medical records, school records, vaccination records. Everything they'd need if we had to start over somewhere new. I researched states with different custody laws, places where Sarah's reach might not extend. I made a list of contacts, people who might help us disappear if it came to that. At dawn, Emma found me still at the computer. "You're planning it too," she said, "our escape." Just in case, just as a backup plan. She hugged me from behind, her arms around my shoulders. "Thank you for fighting for us." "Always, sweetheart, always." We got ready for court in silence. Everyone dressed carefully like we were preparing for battle. Emma wore the same blue dress from last time. Lucas put on his suit again. Sophie chose her purple dress. I wore my best outfit, the one I'd bought for Margaret's funeral. The courthouse was already full when we arrived. News had spread about the case, and there were reporters outside. Apparently a wealthy socialite fighting her elderly mother for custody of children she'd abandoned made for good headlines. "Mrs. Chen, do you think you'll win?" one reporter shouted. "Mrs. Chen, is it true Sarah Patterson abandoned her children?" "Emma, how do you feel about your mother?" Rebecca hustled us past them and into the courthouse. Sarah was already there with her bus bench lawyer, a nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting suit who kept dropping his papers. Without her expensive legal team, she looked smaller, less certain. But her eyes were hard when she looked at us. Derek was there too, but sitting on our side of the courtroom. When Sarah saw him, her face crumpled. "Derek, please, don't do this." "I'm here to tell the truth," he said quietly. "What we were doing was wrong, Sarah. You know it was." Judge Huang entered, and everyone stood. She looked stern, her expression giving nothing away. She had a thick folder in front of her, our lives reduced to documents and testimony. "I've reviewed all the evidence in this case," she began. "The testimony, the psychological evaluations, the reports from the visitation supervisor. This is not an easy decision. On one hand, we have Sarah Patterson, the biological mother, claiming she wants to reunite with her children after a 13-year absence. On the other hand, we have Janet Chen, the grandmother, who has served as these children's primary caregiver for their entire conscious lives." She paused, looking directly at Sarah. "Ms. Patterson, I want to be very clear about something. Your story about postpartum depression and professional guidance to stay away from your children does not hold up under scrutiny. You were unable to provide medical records supporting your claim. You gave interviews where you denied having children. You lived a life that had no room for them in it. For 13 years, you made a choice every single day not to be their mother. And now you want to undo that choice." Sarah's new lawyer tried to stand. "Your Honor, my client admits she made mistakes, but—" "Sit down, counselor. I'm not finished." Judge Huang's voice was sharp. "The question before this court is not whether Sarah Patterson wants her children back. The question is, what is in the best interests of Emma, Lucas, and Sophie? And I've heard from those children directly. I've heard them say in no uncertain terms that Janet Chen is their mother, that they feel safe with her, that they want to stay with her." I felt Emma grab my hand, squeezing tight. I've also reviewed the evidence regarding the timing of this petition. Ms. Patterson, your custody claim came just weeks after Mrs. Chen inherited a substantial estate from her sister. Your ex-husband, Derek Patterson, submitted a sworn statement indicating that you specifically mentioned the inheritance as a motivation for seeking custody. You told him, and I quote, "If those kids are living with her, they'll inherit everything that should have been mine." Sarah went white. That's not what I meant. He's misunderstanding. Mr. Patterson's statement is very clear. You also told him that having the children back would improve your public image after negative publicity about your parenting. This is not the behavior of a mother fighting to reunite with her children out of love. This is the behavior of someone who sees her children as assets. The judge shuffled her papers, and I realized I was holding my breath. The children in this case have suffered enough. They were abandoned at vulnerable ages. They struggled with trauma and attachment issues. And through it all, Janet Chen was there. She gave up her retirement, her savings, her own life to raise them. She's been to every parent-teacher conference, every doctor's appointment, every school play. She's the one who held them when they cried for their mother. She's the one who helped them heal. Judge Huang looked at us, now her expression softening slightly. Emma Lucas, Sophie, I heard your testimony. I saw your fear at the thought of leaving your grandmother. I read Dr. Santos's evaluation explaining that you have no attachment to Sarah Patterson and that forcing you into her custody would be psychologically harmful. As a court, we're supposed to prioritize the best interests of the child, and your best interests are clear. She picked up her gavel. I am denying Sarah Patterson's petition for custody modification. Janet Chen will retain full legal and physical custody of Emma Lucas and Sophie. Furthermore, given the evidence of Ms. Patterson's motivations and the children's explicit wishes, I am denying all visitation rights unless and until the children as adults choose to have a relationship with their biological mother. Ms. Patterson, you gave up these children 13 years ago. This court will not force them back into your life now. The gavel came down, and it felt like the world started moving again after being frozen. Emma burst into tears, throwing her arms around me. Lucas was crying too, and Sophie was laughing and crying at the same time. Rebecca was smiling, tears in her eyes. Across the courtroom, Sarah collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands. Her lawyer was packing up his briefcase, already moving on to his next case. Derek walked over to us. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry for my part in this. You kids deserved better." Emma looked at him. "You could have stopped her." "I know I should have. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're staying with your grandmother. She's clearly the right person to raise you." He left, and we watched Sarah gather her things. She looked at us, once her eyes hollow and lost. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She'd made her choices, and now she had to live with them. Outside the courthouse, the reporters swarmed us again. This time, Rebecca handled it. "Mrs. Chen has full custody of her grandchildren as she should. This family has been through enough, and we ask that you respect their privacy going forward." We drove home in a daze. None of it felt real yet. Emma kept saying "we won" over and over like she was trying to convince herself. Lucas was quiet, processing everything in his internal way. Sophie fell asleep in the car, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. At home, Gloria was waiting on the porch with balloons and a cake that said, "Welcome home forever." She'd invited the other grandparents from our support group, and they'd all brought food. It turned into an impromptu celebration. These people who understood what it meant to fight for your grandchildren, to sacrifice everything for them. That night, after everyone left and the kids were finally in bed, I sat in the living room and let myself cry. 13 years of worry, of struggle, of wondering if it would all be taken away. And now it was over. They were really, truly mine, not because of biology or court orders, but because we chose each other, because we were family in the way that actually mattered. Emma came downstairs and found me. "Grandma, are you okay?" "I'm perfect, sweetheart, just letting out some emotion." She sat next to me, leaning her head on my shoulder like she used to when she was little. I never doubted you'd win. Not really, because the truth was on our side. The truth and a really good lawyer, and the fact that you're the best person I know." She looked up at me. "I know I don't say it enough, but thank you. For everything. For taking us in when Mom left. For never giving up on us. For fighting for us. Thank you for being our real mom." "Oh, Emma, you don't have to thank me. You three are the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though we ruined your retirement, even though you had to work so hard and sacrifice so much, even though, especially because, you didn't ruin anything, you saved me." We sat there in comfortable silence, and I thought about all the moments that had led to this one. Sarah driving away that Tuesday morning, the first time Sophie called me Mommy, Emma's graduation from middle school, Lucas's first art show, every struggle, every triumph, every ordinary day that had woven us together into something unbreakable. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I opened it and my heart sank. It was from Sarah. "You win. You get to keep my children. But I want you to know that I love them." I did. I just didn't know how to be what they needed. Maybe I still don't. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I hope they have a good life. Tell them I'll always be their mother, even if they never want to see me again. I stared at the message for a long time, then I deleted it. Maybe someday I'd tell them what it said. Maybe when they were older, when the wounds weren't so fresh. But for now, they didn't need Sarah's guilt or her justifications. They just needed to heal. "Was that her?" Emma asked, seeing my face. "Yeah." "What did she say?" "Nothing important. Nothing that changes anything." Emma nodded, accepting that. "Good, because I don't want to think about her anymore. I just want to think about us, about our family." "Then that's exactly what we'll do." The next few weeks were strange. We kept expecting something to go wrong, for someone to show up and say there'd been a mistake. But nothing happened. Life just went back to normal. Emma started her pre-med summer program. Lucas signed up for an advanced art class. Sophie joined a writing workshop at the library. I got a letter from Derek a month later. He'd finalized his divorce from Sarah and moved back to Chicago. He sent a check for $50,000 with a note that said, "For the kids' college funds, it's the least I can do." I deposited it into their education accounts, money they'd earned through suffering they should never have endured. Sarah disappeared from our lives as completely as she'd disappeared 13 years ago. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to New York, started over again, in a new city where nobody knew her story. Part of me hoped she'd find peace. Part of me hoped she'd never stop regretting what she'd lost. 6 months after the trial, Emma asked me if I'd thought about adopting them officially. "I know you have guardianship," she said, "but I was thinking it would be nice if we all had the same last name, if it was official that you're our mom." "You want to be adopted?" "Yeah, I mean if you want to." "If I want to." "Emma, there's nothing I'd want more." So we did it. Rebecca handled the paperwork, and on a cold December morning, we went back to the courthouse. Judge Huang presided over the adoption hearing, smiling this time. When she declared Emma, Lucas, and Sophie officially and legally my children, we all cried. Happy tears this time, healing tears. They took my last name, Emma Chen, Lucas Chen, Sophie Chen. We were a family not just in our hearts, but in the eyes of the law. Complete, whole. That night I cooked their favorite dinner and we celebrated. Sophie made a speech about how she'd always known I was her real mom, but now it was official. Lucas gave me a drawing he'd made of our family, all 4 of us together smiling. Emma just hugged me and whispered, "I love you, Mom." Not Grandma. Mom. And I realized that Sarah had been wrong about one thing. She'd said I'd stolen her children, but you can't steal what someone throws away. You can only pick up the pieces and put them back together. You can only love what was left behind. These kids weren't stolen, they were saved, and now they were mine truly and forever in every way that mattered. I thought the story was over after the adoption. I thought we could finally move forward without looking back. But Sarah had one more card to play, and she waited 2 years to play it. Emma was 17, applying to colleges when the first letter arrived. It was addressed to her at school, bypassing me entirely. She brought it home and dropped it on the kitchen counter like it was contaminated. "It's from her," Emma said flatly. "She found out which high school I go to." I picked up the envelope, recognizing Sarah's handwriting even after all this time. "Do you want to read it?" "No, but I feel like I should. Like if I don't, she wins somehow." Lucas and Sophie gathered around as Emma opened it. Inside was a 5-page letter, handwritten on expensive stationery. Sarah's attempt to explain herself to justify the unjustifiable. Emma read it aloud, her voice getting harder with each paragraph. Sarah wrote about her regrets, her therapy, her journey of self-discovery. She wrote about watching Emma's graduation photos on social media, about how proud she was. She asked for a chance to talk just once, to explain herself properly. "She's proud." Emma's voice was shaking. "She's proud of me. She doesn't get to be proud. She wasn't there." "You don't have to respond," I said. "Oh, I'm responding." Emma grabbed a piece of paper and started writing furiously. I watched her pour 13 years of pain onto that page, every abandonment, every missed moment, every lie Sarah had told. When she finished, she read it to us. "Dear Sarah, you gave up the right to contact me when you left. You gave up the right to be proud of me when you told the world I didn't exist. I don't need your explanations or your apologies. I don't need anything from you because I have everything I need. I have a mother who actually showed up. Her name is Janet Chen, and she's worth 1,000 of you. Don't write to me again. Don't come to my graduation. Don't look at my social media. Just stay gone like you were for 13 years. That's when you were the best mother you could be. Emma Chen." She mailed it the next day, and I hoped that would be the end of it. But 3 weeks later, Sarah showed up at Emma's school. The principal called me. "Mrs. Chen, there's a woman here claiming to be Emma's mother. She's asking to see her." "Keep Emma away from her. I'm coming right now." I drove faster than I should have, my mind racing. Sarah had been ordered to stay away. This was a violation of the judge's ruling. By the time I got to the school, security had already escorted Sarah to the parking lot, but she was waiting there leaning against a car that probably cost more than my house. She looked different. Older, more worn. The polished veneer she'd worn in court had cracked. When she saw me, she straightened up. "Janet, please. Just let me talk to her for 5 minutes." "No. You were ordered to stay away unless they chose to contact you." Emma made her choice clear. "She's 17 years old. She doesn't understand. She doesn't know the whole story." "She knows enough. She knows you left and never looked back. She knows you tried to take them away for money. What else is there to understand?" Sarah's face crumpled. "I know I was wrong. I know I can never make up for what I did. But Janet, she's my daughter. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means everything. That's why I fought so hard to keep her. Because being someone's daughter should mean they're protected and loved and chosen every single day. You never did that. I did." "I want to try now. I'm different. I've been in therapy for 2 years. Real therapy this time. I've processed what I did, why I did it. I want to make amends." "Amends aren't for you. They're for the people you hurt. And the people you hurt don't want to see you. So you're going to get in your car and leave, or I'm calling the police for violation of a court order." Emma appeared in the doorway of the school, flanked by security guards. She'd seen us talking and came out anyway against everyone's advice. She walked straight up to Sarah, and I saw Sarah's face transform with hope. "Emma, sweetheart, I just wanted to see you, to tell you how sorry I am." "I got your letter," Emma said coldly. "I sent you my response. That should have been enough." "I needed to see you in person, to look you in the eye and tell you that I never stopped loving you." "Yes, you did. You stopped loving me the second you drove away. Love isn't a feeling you have sometimes when it's convenient. Love is showing up even when it's hard. Love is sacrifice and commitment and choosing someone over and over again. You don't know anything about that." "I was sick, Emma. I was suffering from depression and I didn't know how to handle it." "Then you should have gotten help. You should have called a therapist, not abandoned your kids. Mom was the same age you are now when Grandpa died, and she didn't fall apart. She didn't leave me. She raised me alone and never complained. That's what real parents do." Sarah flinched at hearing Emma call me Mom. "She turned you against me." "No, you did that yourself. Every day you didn't call, every birthday you missed, every lie you told about not having kids. You turned me against you with your actions. Mom just picked up the pieces. I want another chance. Please, Emma, I'm begging you. Emma looked at her for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Not forgiveness, but a kind of closure. You know what the saddest part is? I used to dream about this moment, about you coming back and begging for forgiveness. I had this whole fantasy where you'd realize what you'd lost and you'd fight to get us back. And I thought when that moment came, I'd feel something, anger or sadness or even satisfaction. But I don't feel anything. You're just a stranger to me, a stranger who looks a little like me and shares some DNA, but that's all. Emma, don't say that. It's the truth. And maybe if you'd come back after a year or even 5 years, things could have been different. But you waited 13 years. 13 years of my life where you weren't there, and you can't get those back. Neither of us can. Sarah started crying, but Emma didn't move to comfort her. She just stood there unmoved. I need you to leave, Emma said. I need you to stop writing, stop showing up, stop trying, because every time you do it just reminds me of what I lost. Not losing you because I lost you a long time ago, and I've made my peace with that. But losing the mother I should have had, the mother I deserved, and that hurts more than you being gone ever did. Emma turned and walked back into the school without looking back. Sarah stood there sobbing, and for a moment I almost felt the pull to comfort her. Old habits from when she was my little girl. But she wasn't my little girl anymore. She was the woman who'd broken my grandchildren's hearts. You need to go, I said quietly. And Sarah, if you really love them, you'll stay gone. Because every time you show up, you hurt them all over again. If you want to make amends, the best thing you can do is leave them alone. I can't just give up on them. You gave up on them 13 years ago. This is just accepting what you already did. And Sarah got in her car and drove away, and I went inside to find Emma. She was in the guidance counselor's office, not crying, but staring at the wall. You okay, sweetheart? I don't know. I thought seeing her would feel different. I thought I'd feel something. Feeling nothing is okay, too. It means you've healed. It means she doesn't have power over you anymore. She looked so sad. She is sad. She destroyed the most important relationships in her life, and now she has to live with that. But that's not your burden to carry. Emma nodded. I know. I just wish it didn't have to be this way. Me too, baby. Me too. We thought that would be the final encounter, but Sarah had decided if she couldn't have a relationship with her children, she'd try to destroy the one they had with me. 2 months later, Rebecca called with news that made my blood run cold. Sarah filed a complaint with Child Protective Services. She's claiming you're unfit, that you're too old to care for teenagers, that you're isolating them from their biological family. That's insane. The judge already ruled on this. I know, but CPS has to investigate any complaint. They're sending someone to your home next week to interview you and the kids. The kids were furious when I told them. Lucas, who'd been largely quiet through most of the drama, was the angriest I'd ever seen him. She's really trying to destroy our family, he said. She can't have us, so she's trying to take you away from us. She can't do that. The investigation will show we're fine. But what if it doesn't? Sophie asked, her voice small. She was 13 now, starting to understand the complexities of the world in ways that scared her. What if they believe her lies? Then we tell them the truth. We show them our home, our life, how happy we are. Truth wins, remember. But I was scared. I'd heard horror stories about CPS investigations, about how they could tear families apart based on suspicion alone. What if the investigator thought I was too old? What if they thought 3 teenagers were too much for a woman my age? The investigator was a tired-looking woman named Jennifer Martinez. She spent 3 hours at our house looking at everything. She checked the bedrooms, the kitchen, the medicine cabinet. She interviewed each kid separately, asking them about their home life, their schooling, their relationship with me. When she interviewed me, she was direct. Mrs. Chen Sarah Patterson claims you've turned her children against her. She says you've prevented contact and filled their heads with lies about her. That's not true. The children made their own decisions about Sarah based on her actions. I've never prevented contact. In fact, the judge's order specifically denies Sarah visitation based on the children's wishes and the evidence of her motivations. She also claims you're elderly and may not be capable of caring for 3 teenagers. I'm 75 years old. I walk 3 miles every day. I have no health conditions that prevent me from caring for my children. And they're not toddlers who need constant physical care. They're teenagers who need guidance, support, and love, all of which I provide. She mentions a substantial inheritance. She suggests you took the children to secure that inheritance. I pulled out the documents Rebecca had prepared. I've had custody of these children for 15 years. The inheritance came only 3 years ago. Here are financial records showing I spent my own savings raising them before the inheritance. Here's the timeline proving Sarah's custody attempt came only after the inheritance, not before. Jennifer reviewed everything, took notes, talked to the kids' teachers and doctors. After 2 weeks, she called with her findings. Mrs. Chen, I'm closing this investigation as unfounded. Your home is stable, the children are well cared for and thriving, and there's no evidence of any impropriety. Sarah Patterson's complaints appear to be motivated by personal grievance rather than legitimate concern for the children's welfare. Thank you. I'm also recommending that if Ms. Patterson files any further complaints, they be flagged as potentially harassing. This is clearly a custodial dispute that's already been resolved in court. She's using the system to continue litigation by other means, and that's not acceptable. After she hung up, I told the kids. Emma's response was immediate. We need to stop her. She's never going to give up unless we make her. What do you mean? I mean we fight back. We go public with what she did. We tell our story so people know the truth. Emma, that's a lot of exposure. Are you sure you want that? I'm sure. Because if we don't, she's going to keep coming after us. She's going to keep using the system to harass us. But if everyone knows what she did, if the whole world knows she abandoned her kids and then tried to get them back for money, she'll have to stop. Lucas and Sophie agreed. So we did something I never thought I'd do. We went public. Emma had started a blog a year earlier about her journey as a teen being raised by her grandmother. It had a small following, mostly other kids in similar situations. Now she wrote a detailed post about Sarah, about the abandonment, about the custody battle, about the harassment. She didn't use Sarah's full name, but she didn't hide it either. The post went viral. Within days, thousands of people were sharing it, commenting, expressing outrage at Sarah's behavior. News outlets picked it up. Biological mother abandons children, then sues grandmother who raised them, read one headline. Sarah's employer fired her, citing the negative publicity. Her friends abandoned her, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. Her social media accounts were flooded with angry messages from strangers calling her a terrible mother. Part of me felt guilty about that, but a larger part of me felt satisfied. Sarah had spent years trying to control the narrative, trying to paint herself as a victim. Now the truth was out and she couldn't hide from it. She tried to respond with her own blog post claiming we'd twisted the story, that she'd been suffering from mental illness. But by then, court records were public. People could see the judge's ruling, could read about how Sarah had admitted to Derek that she wanted the kids for access to the inheritance. The truth was documented, and no amount of spin could change it. The harassment stopped after that. Sarah retreated completely, deleting her social media, moving again, disappearing from public view. We heard through Derek, who'd remained in occasional contact, that she'd moved to Europe, trying to start over somewhere nobody knew her story. She asked me to tell you she's sorry, Derek said during a phone call. For everything. For the harassment, for not being the mother she should have been. She knows she can never make it right, but she wanted you to know she's sorry. Tell her we accept her apology, Emma said, surprising me. Tell her we hope she finds peace, but also tell her we don't want to hear from her again. This chapter of our lives is closed. Derek agreed, and that was the last we heard about Sarah for years. Life moved forward. Emma graduated high school as valedictorian and got accepted to Johns Hopkins for pre-med. Lucas received a full scholarship to an art institute in Chicago. Sophie was excelling in high school, already winning writing competitions and getting her work published in literary magazines. At Emma's graduation, I sat in the audience and watched her give her speech. She talked about resilience, about family being who shows up for you, about how the greatest gift anyone ever gave her was choosing to stay. "My mom taught me that love is a choice you make every day," Emma said, and I knew she was talking about me. She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about commitment. It's about sacrifice. It's about showing up even when it's hard. She showed up for me and my siblings every single day for 15 years. She gave us a home when we'd been abandoned. She gave us stability when our world was chaos. She gave us love when we thought we were unlovable. Mom, if you're listening, I know you hate public attention, but I need everyone here to know you saved us. And everything good in my life started the day you chose to keep us. The audience erupted in applause, and I sat there crying like a fool, proud and grateful, and overwhelmed by how these 3 broken children had grown into such remarkable people. That night at home, we had a quiet celebration. Emma left for college in the fall. Lucas left a year later. Sophie had 2 more years of high school, but I could already see her counting down the days until she could spread her wings too. "Are you going to be okay when we're all gone?" Sophie asked me one night while we were doing dishes together. "Won't you be lonely?" "I'll miss you terribly," I admitted. "But I'll be okay. This was always the goal, remember, to raise you to be independent, successful, happy people who could make their own way in the world. But we wouldn't be any of those things without you. You would have been, maybe in a different way, but you would have found your way." "I don't think so. I think without you we'd be lost. Or worse." I pulled her into a hug. "Well, we'll never have to find out, will we? Because I was there. I did stay. And you 3 turned out pretty amazing." On Sophie's 18th birthday, 5 years after the court case, she asked if we could have a family meeting. All 3 kids came home for it, even Emma and Lucas taking time off from their busy schedules. "I wanted to talk about Sarah," Sophie said once we were all gathered in the living room. My heart sank. "What about her?" "I've been thinking about her a lot lately. About what she lost, about how she threw away 3 kids who turned out pretty great." She smiled slightly, and I realized something. I'm not angry anymore. I used to be so angry that she left, that she wasn't who I needed her to be. But I'm not angry now. I'm just grateful. "Grateful?" Lucas asked. "Yeah, because if she'd stayed, if she'd been a good mother, we wouldn't have this. We wouldn't have Mom as our mom. We wouldn't have this family we built together. So in a weird way, Sarah abandoning us was the best thing that ever happened to us." Emma nodded slowly. "I've thought about that too, about how different our lives would be if she'd stayed. We probably wouldn't be as close to each other. We probably wouldn't be as close to Mom. We might not be the people we are now. So I wanted to say thank you," Sophie continued, looking at me. "Thank you for turning the worst thing that ever happened to us into the best thing. Thank you for making a family out of 3 scared kids. Thank you for being exactly who we needed when we needed you." They'd gotten me a gift, a photo album filled with pictures from the last 15 years. Every milestone, every holiday, every ordinary moment that had become extraordinary because we were together. On the last page was a letter they'd written together. "Dear Mom," it read, "we know you hate sentimentality, but too bad. We're being sentimental anyway. 15 years ago, Sarah left us on your doorstep and drove away. She thought she was dumping a burden. But really, she was giving us the greatest gift. She was giving us you. You weren't obligated to take us in. You weren't obligated to give up your retirement, your savings, your life. But you did. You chose us every single day for 15 years, and we want you to know that we see that. We appreciate that. We love you for that. You're not just our guardian or our adoptive mother. You're our mom in every way that word can mean. You're the first person we call when something good happens. You're the person whose approval we seek. You're the one we want at our graduations, our weddings, every important moment of our lives. Not because of obligation or duty, but because you earned that place in our hearts. Sarah gave birth to us, but you raised us. You shaped us. You made us who we are. And we wouldn't trade you for anything or anyone. So thank you, Mom. Thank you for staying. Love, Emma, Lucas, and Sophie. I couldn't read the last paragraph out loud. I was crying too hard, overwhelmed by the weight of their love and gratitude. These kids who'd started out so broken, so scared, so convinced they were unlovable. And now look at them, whole, healed, thriving. I'm supposed to be the one thanking you, I managed to say. You three gave my life meaning when I thought I was done. You gave me a purpose. You gave me a family. Then we're even, Emma said, hugging me. Lucas and Sophie joined in, and we stood there in a group embrace, this family that biology hadn't created, but love had forged. 6 months later, I got one final letter from Sarah. It was postmarked from France, where she'd apparently settled permanently. Inside was a single page. Janet, I know I have no right to ask anything of you after everything I've done, but I'm writing to say goodbye. Not the kind of goodbye where I disappear for 13 years and pretend my children don't exist. The kind of goodbye where I finally accept that I've lost them forever and it's my own fault. I've spent the last 5 years in therapy really working through why I did what I did. And I've come to understand that I was never ready to be a mother. I wasn't mature enough, wasn't selfless enough, wasn't strong enough. I thought running away would make me happy. Instead, it made me empty. I threw away the most precious things in my life because I didn't value them until they were gone. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. I'm writing to say thank you. Thank you for being the mother I couldn't be. Thank you for loving my children when I failed to. Thank you for giving them the life I couldn't give them. They're extraordinary people. I see their achievements online sometimes, and I'm amazed by who they've become. That's because of you. So thank you. And I'm sorry. I'll always be sorry. I hope you and the kids have a beautiful life together. You've earned it. Sarah. I showed the letter to the kids. They read it in silence, and I waited for their reactions. I believe her, Emma said finally. I think she really is sorry, but it doesn't change anything. Should we write back? Sophie asked. Do you want to? They looked at each other, having one of those silent sibling conversations. Finally, Lucas spoke up. I think we should. Not for her, for us, to close the door completely. They wrote a letter together, short and to the point. Sarah, we received your letter. We appreciate your apology and your acknowledgement of what happened. We hope you find peace and happiness in your new life, but we need you to know that we've moved on. We have a mother. Her name is Janet Chen, and she's everything a mother should be. We don't need anything from you, and we don't want further contact. We wish you well, but from a distance. Goodbye. Emma Lucas and Sophie Chen. They mailed it, and that was truly the end. Sarah never wrote again, never showed up, never tried to insert herself into our lives. She'd finally learned to let go. Years passed. Emma graduated from medical school. Lucas had his first gallery show in New York. Sophie published her first novel at 23. I watched them grow into their lives, start careers, fall in love, become the people they were always meant to be. Emma got married when she was 28 to a kind man who was a teacher. At the wedding, when they asked who gave her away, she said, "My mother, Janet Chen." I walked her down the aisle, proud and tearful, thinking about that scared 7-year-old who'd chased after her mother's car 13 years ago. During her toast, Emma talked about family. People always say blood is thicker than water, she said, but the full quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the relationships we choose are stronger than the ones we're born into. My mom chose me when my biological mother didn't. She chose all of us, and that choice made every single day for years. That's what made us a family. Not genetics, not obligation, choice and love and showing up. That's what family really means. I looked around the wedding at Lucas with his girlfriend, at Sophie, laughing with her friends at this life we'd built from the wreckage of abandonment. And I thought about Sarah, somewhere in France, living with her choices. I hoped she'd found some measure of peace, but mostly, I was grateful. Grateful that she'd left, as terrible as that sounds, because her leaving gave me the greatest gift of my life. These 3 kids who called me Mom, this family we'd chosen, this love we'd built. It wasn't the family any of us had planned, but it was the family we'd needed, and it was perfect. 15 years after Sarah drove away from my house, I sat at Emma's wedding watching my children dance and laugh and celebrate, and I realized something. She'd said she needed to find herself to figure out who she really was. And she had. She was someone who could walk away from her children, someone who valued freedom over family, someone who couldn't handle the hard parts of life. But I'd found out who I was too. I was someone who stayed, someone who chose love over ease, someone who believed that family wasn't something you were born into, but something you built day by day, choice by choice, sacrifice by sacrifice. I was a mother. Not because I gave birth to these children, but because I raised them, because I showed up, because when they needed someone to stay, I stayed. And that in the end was the only victory that mattered. Not the court ruling, or the public vindication, or Sarah's eventual admission of guilt. The victory was in the ordinary moments, the breakfast conversations and homework help and goodnight kisses, the graduations and weddings and grandchildren I'd someday meet. The family we'd become not through biology, but through choice. That was the real triumph. That was what made it all worthwhile. Sarah had wanted to find herself, and she'd lost everything in the process. I'd found myself by finding them, and I'd never been more grateful for anything in my entire life.